Episode of Rabbit Hole Recap, sitting down here, my very good friend Matt Odell. Matt, how the hell are we doing?
What's up, good friend Marty Bent?
Good friend, great friend, incredible friend, brother. How are we describing our relationship? Who knows? I've been up since 4:30 a.m. I woke up in Miami, took an Uber to Fort Lauderdale, took a flight to Atlantic City. I've been putzing around all day trying to get my energy back, and
Wait, why'd you fly out of Fort Lauderdale instead of Miami?
it's just much more convenient with Atlantic City.
Oh, it's there was no Miami to Atlantic City.
No, we don't get those direct flights.
Atlantic City must be a shithole fucking airport.
It's not necessarily a shithole. It's very small. Doesn't have everything you'd want. It is convenient. Like the walk from the front door through security to the gate is very short.
Because it's small.
Yeah. Likewise, when you get off the plane, not a lot of walking. Not too busy at any point in
Fort
time.
Lauderdale's a pretty small airport too,
It's bigger than Atlantic City. And
but
that's
it's way smaller than Miami.
yeah. I've never even flown into Miami. Every time I go down there, I fly from Atlantic City and into Fort Lauderdale. It's not bad. 4:30 in the morning. The Uber from Miami to Fort Lauderdale was like 25, 30 minutes. Wasn't that bad.
I was pleasantly surprised by Miami Airport. I flew out for Bitcoin 2021. I flew back from Miami.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I went to Indy and back and then flew out. So I was there 3 times. It was a good airport.
Never
And
been.
the whole mask thing in the airports is just infuriating.
Uh,
But
really is. I ripped it off this morning as soon as I got off the plane, like walked through the thing and got to the gate ticketing booth, and the one Spirit uh, representative was like, "Sir, please put your mask on in the airport." And I just completely ignored her and kept walking.
the freaks know I don't really need that much of an excuse, but it's turned me as a traveler into way more of an alcoholic than I was before because the bars are like the mask free zone.
Yes,
So
yes,
as soon as I get through security, I just go sit at the bar and I just fucking pound drinks until like 10 minutes before boarding closes, 5 minutes before boarding closes. And then I just get on the plane. And then as soon as drink service goes, I just start drinking again.
yeah. The ways in which you try to avoid the mask in the airport on the plane. On the plane this morning, I was tired. I wanted to go to sleep. And obviously, mask on hurts with breathing, so I just pulled my hat down like this and just put my mask under my mouth,
It's
and
so fucking
I
ridiculous.
had to hide the fact that I had my mask down, like using my hat, just so I could breathe correctly.
Federal crime.
Literally, federal crime. Don't tell Spirit I did this. They may come at me for being a viral terrorist, if you will. It's crazy. It's ramping back up. It's ramping back up. Delta variant.
Should we like launch like an airfare focused podcast that we just talk about traveling on planes?
Traveling on planes, our experiences. I hate airports. They're just getting worse and worse. Ooh, way there. We'll get to Bitcoin eventually, but I have to tell the way to Miami Monday morning, AC to Fort Lauderdale, going through security and AC, and I had to go through the scanner. And I had shorts on uh, with a tie. Like, what is a tie rope? What the fuck is it? What am I thinking?
Belt.
Not a belt, but strings that I tied into. Like,
Oh, like the elastic, not elastic.
it was strings. I had strings that I tied, and so like it was like a little bulky in the front of my shorts. And I go through that fucking scanner. Whenever I go through that scanner, I give the double bird because I just want to voice
Because you're supposed to put your hands up or whatever.
voice my displeasure with the whole process because it's all bullshit. But I get out and I'm like waiting to see. I have nothing in my pockets, nothing, and just like my whole dick area is red. He's like, "Sir, I'm going to pat down your groin." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And like the guy next to him, and then like I was just wearing shorts, no underwear. I was wearing flip flops on the plane. I was like barefoot, like a t-shirt and these shorts. And he's like, I'm gonna have to pat down your groin." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And the guy like next to him, he was like, "All right, no need to get angry, sir. Like, step back in. We'll see if like something happens." I go back in, nothing. It's like, what the fuck is this process? What is going on here?
Well, the original
Dude was ready to like grab my dick too. I was like, get the fuck away from me.
the the original design of the machines, if I recall correctly, was it was actually like would show like an X-ray image, but for privacy preserving concerns, now it just shows like
Heat.
like
Matt,
a square, like it'll show a square, like this area is concerning, but they don't actually see like they supposedly don't see like an X-ray image of your junk. I'm surprised you don't get more trouble for flipping the bird when you go through.
I do. They don't always catch it. Sometimes they will. They'll be like, "Hey, that wasn't cool. There's kids here," and I'll be like, "Fuck you." Like, I hate.
You have no rights in the airport whatsoever.
I hate TSA. I hate that whole process. Am I just a contrarian that hates everything that is mainstream? Maybe.
No, I mean the TSA is just fucking.
It's a bunch of
It,
mouth breathers. Like
they
these.
waste us a shit ton of time. They waste us a ton of money, and it's not really actually effective at preventing terrorism. I mean, we saw. I mean, in general, terrorism seems to have subdued, but we even saw for a little bit there. We saw bombings just happen on the opposite side of the TSA line. Right? They had that massive bombing in I think it was Belgium,
Mm-hmm.
where it was on the other side. It was they bombed the people waiting online.
Yeah. Just next time you're in the airport, if you've never thought of this, just look at the TSA employees and think to yourself, like, is this really the last line of defense that's going to save us from a terrorist attack? And
Well, I would just push back. Well, I agree that they're probably not, but I would push back at being angry at the actual employees. Like they have a shit fucking job.
they do.
Um,
They do like their power trip too, and
some of them do, but
they
I
take it,
feel like most of them are just
they
they
take
know they have a shit job and they just do it every day and they
they take
just
their shit job and they focus their anger and angst about that shit job on the people that are being cattle herded through their process. It's like, if you're gonna take this job, don't take it out on me when you're angry, and you're frustrated, and you're not liking that. Go work somewhere else.
the TSA is kind of relevant, right? Because it's a perfect example of using fear for government overreach and then that never getting rolled back,
Well,
right? And this is kind of what we're seeing happening with COVID. Like most of the shit that's getting implemented, I'd be very surprised if it ever gets rolled back. It's just going to get worse and worse.
yeah, these temporary agencies solutions are never very temporary. We're 20 years into the TSA in their current form, and they're restrictive. Think about how much time is wasted in those fucking lines and that whole process. It's incredible. Incredibly depressing. Yeah, it's not temporary. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Guess what? LA, mask back on. Austin, thinking about mask back on. Delta variant, cases up. It's coming. It's coming. If you're vaccinated, you're 100% safe, except for all these people who've got COVID and died from it after being double vaxxed. It's crazy, like the discrepancy of messaging across the world. Like you have Israel, something like 64% of hospitalizations are people have been double vaxxed. Similarly in the UK, and then like here in America, somehow the statistics are like 100% of the people who are hospitalized because of COVID right now are unvaccinated. It's like,
Definitely
in
bullshit.
the lineup, like, but
I
we're
think Israel like closed their borders even to vaccinated people now. And
yeah.
Sydney's going back into lockdown. Did you see the video clip of
One,
them in Sydney talking about using financial surveillance to enforce lockdowns?
yep, yep. They're gonna track businesses and debit card transactions to make sure people aren't going out and eating. They'll know the dystopia. And again, we mentioned this last week, and the tone of last week's rip was very I don't want to say unemotional, but very serious, I would say. Because I think we both agreed that it feels like a palpable escalation of authoritarian narratives and attempts to clamp down on the populace is picked up in the last couple months, and it's accelerating. And I would argue that trend continued over the last 7 days since we last met.
Yeah, I feel like it's heating up.
Right?
I don't know. I maybe I just have a constant bias about these things. But it feels like yeah, I don't know, man. It's like you it just it's I feel in my normie circles, um, a lot of resurgence in like the COVID fear tactics, and as a result, I expect, and I think I talked to you about this off the record back in Miami, we were like kind of maybe we were like in the eye of the storm. It kind of looked like maybe we had passed the point of people have pushed back. They said we don't want vaccine passports. It wasn't going to happen in a lot of different places. Um, and there was like some hope, like for a little bit there was like, oh, maybe it won't be like wide sweeping vaccine passports, surveil everyone, track everyone, make them comply. Um, and I was like, they're just going to go one variant after the next. They're just going to be like this variant, this variant, this variant. You need to get your boosters. You need to do this. And once everyone who volunteers to get the vaccine does it, then the pressure begins to try and get the remnants of that.
Yeah. And it's, again, incredibly logically inconsistent. Like, it's just like, oh my God. With the whole vaccinated. And again, it's divide and conquer techniques. I think that's the thing that scared me in the last few months, specifically about the perceived escalation that we may both believe is happening, is the overt divisive tactics, particularly the messaging around vaccinated versus unvaccinated. The pandemic of unvaccinated people is one of the lines the media and the political class has been running with to try to stigmatize people who have decided that they would rather not be part of an experimental vaccine rollout. They would rather risk getting it and surviving.
I mean, to me, the biggest fucking thing that pisses me off is this idea that it's anyone's fucking business.
Right? Somehow.
I forget about the conversation about the efficacy of the vaccine or the safety of the vaccine or whether or not you want to get it. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't want to get it, don't get it. But like to think that, and this is not just from government, right? I've had family members who think they have a right to know what my decision was. Why the fuck do they have a right to know what my decision was? How is that any of their business? It's fucking crazy, and it's just I feel the pressure only getting higher from here. And we see the UK is rolling out passports now. I expect it to go all throughout Europe, and governments can't secure data. They just fucking can't. So if we're just going to give them even more data, we're going to give them location data, we're going to give them medical records, have them all keep that in their insecure databases. It's a fucking mess.
Agreed. And we're going to pick up this line of thinking after we get to the dashboard, because there's so much.
Is this a Bitcoin podcast?
It is. Well, Bitcoin plays into this, right? Like, we will connect it back to Bitcoin, I'm sure, particularly when we get into the CBDC, the travel rule conversation. I want to talk about, it's not on the list, but I want to talk about the New York Times op-ed about CBDCs. That was just complete fucking.
Oh, yeah. I read that.
Yeah, it's just like it just reads like state propaganda in the New York Times. But we'll get to it. Currently, according to Clark Moody's dashboard, the price of Bitcoin is $32,330. One cuck is going to get you 3,093 sats. We're at 606.6 billion, close to 666. Not quite though. We're at block height 693,199, getting close to 692,200. Currently, we are 1,305 blocks away from the next difficulty adjustment, which is estimated to be on July 31st, which is 9 days away from now. So that would be next Saturday. And that is estimated as of right now to be a 2.1 upward difficulty adjustment. Blocks have been coming in at 9 minutes and 48 seconds on average since the last downward difficulty adjustment of 4.8% last week. Mempool, stronger than it was last week, but not really that strong. 1,271 transactions in Clark's mempool. You can send any 1 sat per byte transactions that you want right now pretty easily. Samurai still pumping.
Mempool is a fucking ghost town. Continue.
Samurai pumping still. Whirlpool capacity, unspent capacity at 3,535.07 BTC. That's $114 million in unspent value there. So that continues to rise.
That was the second time you froze up on me. I don't know if it's me freezing or you freezing.
I think it might be you. I'm not freezing on my end.
Freaks, have you noticed that? Let us know in the live chat, just so if I can reset, I'll reset.
Uh,
Okay, continue. Samurai Whirlpool, fucking pumping. Love to see it.
Whirlpool
And
pump.
it should in low fee environment, in an environment where privacy is being attacked from every fucking corner right now. It looks like.
Yeah, the privacy coin join implementation builders just criminals looking to evade the law.
I froze. It was my fault. They are not privacy devs were called both criminals and spooks, which you can't be a criminal and a spook. Spooks are. It's impossible for a spook to be a criminal because he works for the government and the government decides he's a criminal. I'm going to. I'm on the wrong Wi-Fi, so I'm going to switch. So if I just keep going.
Okay. Matt's on the wrong Wi-Fi. He's going to switch. I was accused of being a spook this week. It was very funny.
Okay, I'm back.
I was accused of being a spook by an individual because I did not agree with Michael Saylor's approach to Trojan horsing the public markets.
I mean, you should. Everyone should be skeptical in general when it comes to Bitcoin. People should not trust. They should verify. They should not have heroes. They should keep everyone honest, 100%. There are definitely spooks amongst us. This is something that we've talked about on the podcast many times. But I've seen a very strong trend on Bitcoin Twitter specifically, where if you don't like someone personally, you just make a baseless spook accusation. And it's extremely lazy and not productive.
No.
And if you want to call me a spook for saying that, by all means, fuck you. I don't care. You should be concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, typical consolidation period.
Yeah. Bitcoin goes sideways. Everyone fucking loses their shit.
It was crazy. That's why you got to focus. We got to have something to work on. That's why it felt nice being in Miami this week and not being on Twitter that much and being productive and actually meeting with people and talking with people about business ideas and grand visions for the future of the mining industry.
Well, that was mining disrupt.
Yes, mining disrupt.
Did you disrupt mining?
I think I have certainly disrupted the conversation in the mining industry for to some extent over the last couple of months. Not at the conference, but I think there's a good case to be made. Not me personally, Great American Mining, and anybody else pushing back against the ESG communist movement. And it's definitely disrupted what some people thought would be a rosy walk into painting Bitcoin mining as something that's going to go 80% renewable in the United States, which I think is a very lofty claim. We shall see, though. We shall see. Mining world is
fucking spook.
I'm a spook. No, there's mining world is the mining industry is very exciting right now. It's a lot of opportunity. Obviously, we're talking about this hash rate migration, but I spent a lot of time with Austin Storms from Great American Mining over the week. We hung out quite a bit. Obviously, we were both representing Great American Mining, but it's the first time we've seen each other in like 2 years. We talked about a lot of shit. One of which was the migration. He's on your side. He's skeptical. He's waiting to see. We've seen old gen hardware hit the shores. He wants to see the new gen hit the shores. That when that starts happening, that's when he'll be less worried about potential fuckery.
It's a good sign that we see projected hash rate moving up, projected difficulty adjustment going up this period without any attacks. Definitely a good sign, but it's definitely, the migrate part hasn't been visible yet.
Yeah.
But we just got to keep an eye on it. And in the meantime, wait a little bit longer for confirmations. I had a freak ask, like if he should be worried about using CoinJoin. Like if you're just sending Bitcoin if you're just sending Bitcoin to yourself, whether that's, UTXO management at a low fee, or if that's CoinJoin, you're never at a risk from a reorg because you always control the private keys of the destination address. It's only when you're interacting with someone else that you could be at risk, specifically receiving Bitcoin transactions. Because if I receive Bitcoin, for instance, and then I rent you a movie, and then that reorg happens, I've already rented you the movie, and now I don't have the Bitcoin, right? So it's specifically if you're receiving Bitcoin is when a reorg can fuck you. If you're just sending it amongst yourself, or even if you're sending it to another merchant and they accept it as confirmed, that's on them. That's not on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where we delve into the whole zero conf debate, zero confirmations. What is the appropriate amount of confirmations to wait before you have the confidence that that's not going to be reorged out of the chain? And it varies for each individual, each corporation, by the amount of Bitcoin that you're sending. Maybe you're comfortable waiting for 3 confirms if you're sending $50 worth of Bitcoin, but maybe you want to wait 100 if you're sending $300 million.
Right, and if it's your buddy, then whatever.
Yeah. That was another interesting discussion at dinner. Went to dinner with a bunch of people from the mining industry, and we talked about, like, what is the security budget? Like, how much security is enough security for the Bitcoin network? How much hash is enough security for the network? And the honest answer is you don't know until you find out, right? Like, yeah,
that's the problem.
Right?
Is like you don't know if it's enough security unless it's not enough.
Right.
So it's better to overshoot.
Yeah.
No, but like, meanwhile, like, I've been saying this recently, BSV has been extremely insecure for the longest fucking time. They finally got attacked, right? Like, attacks weren't happening. Bitcoin Cash, extremely insecure, hasn't really gotten attacked in any kind of meaningful way besides when BSV was attacking them. Tron still exists, Binance chain exists, fucking FTX's bullshit still exists. Ethereum, hasn't gotten any kind of, large scale attacks against it.
They just cells with all these fucking build updates. Did you see their worked over the weekend?
My favorite part is, like, recently, like, so miners have been front running like Uniswap trades and stuff like that, like been front running DeFi stuff. Mm-hmm. So miners have been attacking users is what's happening on the network, right? And in classic Ethereum fashion, they have a term for it. It's called MEV, miner extracted value. And it's how much a miner can make attacking the fucking users of the network it's supposed to be securing. But they made it they gave it a fancy term.
MEV, helping drive value to your ultrasound money. Not even worth wasting any more breath on that. Just be aware, freaks, if you're into that weird stuff. Stuff like that goes on, and it may potentially only get worse if they ever successfully transition to proof of stake. So beware.
The reason I laughed earlier was because there's a freak in the YouTube live chat, Hornet M, that called me out because no one rents movies anymore, and I used that as my example.
Yeah, the one example that you just say you're buying a desk, buying a chair. You just finally decide to buy a chair.
I was trying to think of something digital.
You're selling your chair for Bitcoin.
I didn't mean like renting a DVD or VHS. I meant like a pay-per-view movie or something. Yeah. And the reason I said that was because it's something digital that is instantly done, right? Like if you're ordering a desk online, like they can wait confirmations before they fucking send you the desk. Like waiting an extra 60 minutes, an hour, that's fine. But if you're trying to do like a pay-per-view movie, you can't do that. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. All right. So timely, not timely. What do I say? Relevant to the present day example, maybe like buying a UFC fight.
We're not allowed to use chairs as an example either, because then we're short Bitcoin.
All right. Should we jump into the list? Let's
fucking rip it. What?
Let's start with Europe. Like we were talking about the authoritarian push It seems to be growing and accelerating and becoming more noticeable if you're paying attention day by day. As it relates to Bitcoin specifically, the European Union, the parliament over there seems very, very poised to bring regulation against Bitcoin. Again, they dragged the travel rule um, into the conversation last week. And we recorded before that that Bitcoin dev uh,
Yes.
bit proposal.
Before said fuck this shit, and
Yeah,
then there was a bent about it.
yeah. Let's
Was
start
that
with.
on Thursday?
I think that dropped Friday. That dropped the 16th.
He
That
intentionally waited,
yeah,
right? He didn't want to do it before. If you're going to do something controversial in Bitcoin land, you should do it on a Friday morning because then it's the longest time before RHR happens and we calm down before we talk about it.
yeah. Yeah, and there's something else that dropped right after RHR last week. We'll mention later. It doesn't really apply to this topic, but yeah, we'll start with the dev
It
mailing list.
wasn't. It was an ATM operator,
Mm-hmm. General Bytes.
General Bytes, right? One of the OG ATM operators, and he messaged the mailing list, the Bitcoin Dev mailing list, because he wanted to create a BIP for complying with the travel rule. Um,
Basically allow you to attach identifying information on individual users to addresses, correct?
no,
Or the
it's
transaction.
actually you attach it to the QR code.
Yes.
So it's just the URI. So like a QR code could have whatever data you want to have in that. So there's nothing visible on chain, but with most of these ATMs, the way that it works is you take your phone wallet, right? And you have a QR code on it and you put it under the scanner and then it pays your phone wallet, right? And that scan process, he wanted a standardized process for putting wallet type, name, contact, name, information, all the identifying information that a travel rule would require.
Yes. Yes. Which is like, so having just been at this conference, Bitstop, the ATM provider based out of Miami, based team as well. Shout out Drew and Doug and everybody else there. Um, I bought some. It was my first Bitcoin ATM experience yesterday. I bought like $20 worth of Bitcoin using their ATMs, but I had to put in my name and address and phone number.
Usually it's a phone number and then I look up the phone number for the rest of the KYC information. But some of them you can get away with the burner phone number.
You know, um, it was a cool experience buying from an ATM, but yeah, I had to put in some information. So it's like, why try to add that to a QR code? Like, why start leaking that into the mailing? So my takeaway from it, like you said, fuck that, fuck this shit.
A very nuanced opinion.
I concur. But it's an example, and again, agree or disagree with what I think about the Mining Council and ESG. Like this is an example of regulatory pressure forcing people in the industry to attempt to change Bitcoin in one way or another. Maybe it's not a protocol change, but it's just like a creeping, nudging co-op by the regulatory state of Bitcoin, and that was like a prime example of it. And I'm very happy to see the reaction of Bitcoiners publicly outside of the mailing list. Inside the mailing list, I believe David Harding responded politely and was just like, create a new BIP and
This is where you submit your BIP.
yeah, submit your BIP here. And I'm not even going to delve into the political aspect of what you're trying to do. It's not the forum for it. Very cordial, very polite, but I think
Too nice.
it's David Harding. He's a very nice individual if you've ever met him. But
Very nice dude. But it should the response should have been fuck this shit, use Google.
right. As an example, like the travel rule. So again, looping this back to European Parliament, European Union, that is another thing. They're making a concerted push to, I guess, everybody's like, oh, this is probably nothing, but there's other people who are like, no, they're really going to try to do this. So the European Union's trying to ban private cryptocurrency, privacy preserving cryptocurrency.
Wait,
What is the definition of the wallet that they're thinking of?
I mean, look, there was a bad Reuters. We always do this. Reuters had a bad headline in classic fashion. They like doing that. They have the clickbait headlines. Mainstream media likes doing clickbait. So they had that headline. The FATFA, the Financial Action Task Force, who Marty's going to remind you is unelected,
Filled with
um,
demons.
filled with what?
Demons. They're demons.
Demons. Yeah,
That's
unelected demons. They're the ones who drafted the travel rule, right? And then you have all these member countries whose job it is to then implement it in their own jurisdictions, right? So, like, there's a US implementation of the travel rule, and now this is the EU implementation of the travel rule. Usually the US comes first.
yes. And yeah, it's just so. So I love some of the responses to this particular email on Twitter. I think you had a great one. I think Stop and Decrypt had a good one.
What was stopping the Crips? I missed that.
He quote tweeted
A
you,
little bit shadow banned.
I believe, and he basically said like because Carol, Carell, I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, the gentleman who sent the email to the mailing list, basically like pleaded in the mailing list, like, I need to do this for our business. If we don't do this, like
Yeah.
may go under. And Stop at a Curb was like, yeah, it sucks, but tough luck. Like Bitcoin doesn't wield to the whims of your business and whether or not the regulators in your jurisdiction will allow it to operate or not,
So
because the Bitcoin protocol works in a certain way.
So we've discussed the travel rule at length. I mean, we were part of the few, I think, that were, sounding the alarms about it in December. Um, back when Bitcoin was like $18,000, by the way, to everyone who's freaking out about the price. And the intention, at least right now, is between, they call them VASPs, virtual asset service providers. And what they mean is they mean exchanges and custodial wallets. And so these are third-party custodians, and they say that those custodians need to know who they're sending Bitcoin to and where the Bitcoin's coming from, and they need to communicate that some way. Now, the wording that came out of the EU was a little bit vague. So some people took it as them going after non-custodial open source wallets that don't have a trusted third party, right? Niraj from Coin Center says that's not the case. I don't know if it's the case or not. It probably isn't the case, to be honest, in the beginning. Like in the beginning, they're just going to want like Coinbase and Binance to communicate with each other. And if you go from General Bytes to Coinbase, then they have to know and yada, yada, yada. But I think ultimately, the inevitable conclusion of all this shit is to try and push it onto non-custodial wallets as well. Like if you're watching all this fucking unfold and you don't think that the next push is to try and go after people who hold their own Bitcoin, that use Bitcoin privately, what fucking world do you live in? Like they're getting people to scan QR codes to go into restaurants, and you think like they're just not going to fucking come after private Bitcoin usage or sovereign Bitcoin usage. Like that's just fucking crazy.
It's insane, incredibly naive, and arguably incredibly stupid as well to be that naive. Especially when you had the backdrop of every central banker in the fucking world pumping CBDCs like they've never done before. Like,
I hate the term CBDCs.
Surveillance coins.
Yeah.
Opticon coins, whatever you want to call them. We have Christine Lagarde in the European Union just like openly and aggressively saying we're going to have a central bank digital currency, a surveillance coin. Like we're going to implement one. If to think that once they implement that they're going to allow Bitcoin to freely float and people to use it as they have for the last 12 and a half years is extremely naive and stupid. Like they're going to attack it and they're going to use the travel rule and try to force these regulations written by unelected demons that have been thrust upon us. They're going to try and force it on the industry, the wallet provider. All that. Like, the attacks are coming. And again, like we said last week, the attacks are here. They're social attacks. They're
They've been happening.
They may seem innocuous, but they're real. And again, it's the nudging.
We're frogs in a fucking pot that's heating up slowly.
And I don't think it's heating up slowly anymore. I think the bubbles are starting to
It's a
pop up.
great sound.
They're wake up. I mean, if you're here joining us, I'm sure most of you are awake and aware of this, but
Central bank digital cuckbucks.
I love that. Central bank digital cuckbucks. Yeah, CB.
You're just gonna fuck with Marty and acronyms now. Marty, you just fuck. It's
Complete
CBDCB.
CBDCB. All right, CBDCB.
Yeah, they forgot the B at the end. They dropped the B. They dropped the B when they say it.
But it is. I mean, they're posturing. Powell came out. They're gonna have a white paper for a Fed central bank surveillance coin, central bank cuckbuck. Augustine Carstens have come out, and again, back to the New York Times op-ed. Now you have like the journalist arm of the propaganda state, and the New York Times coming out and being like, "Yes, we want a stable coin, or excuse me, a central bank digital currency because it'll allow us to implement negative interest rate policy, to force people to spend money in a certain amount of time, and to eliminate illegal activity," which we all know is just a mumbo jumbo of words that essentially lead to, we just want to control everything that you do. Like, to think, and again, criminals are going to commit crimes. To think that if you create this surveillance coin and you have the ability to granularly control who can transact with who, and who can send money to who, and who can receive money from who, and to think that people aren't going to route around that in some way is just, again, completely naive and stupid. It's not about criminals. It's the carrot that they put in front of you to instill fear.
The criminals are like the few people that have privacy, and they're going to continue to have privacy after the fact.
Right?
If you criminalize privacy, the only people who have privacy are fucking criminals. And then meanwhile, they're going to fucking steal all our data and then use it against us. And if you think KYC works, they're going to steal our KYC data and use that KYC data to open accounts in our name so that they don't have to fucking do it. So let's talk about this New York Times article, because it was super blatant. It was written by like a Cornell University. He's probably boys with he who must not be named, also at Cornell.
Rabini's not.
Some might call him an elite hacker, but I'm not gonna fucking say his name.
Oh,
You're gonna make me say his name?
Eamon?
Yeah, Eamon.
Eamon Greer. I've been blocked by him for years.
Massive scammer. Yeah, he still exists. He's still running the same thing. I mean, I'm blocked too.
I forgot he existed.
Yeah, I forgot he existed too, but someone tweeted about him the other day, and then I looked at his page, and he's still going, man.
God bless
But
him.
anyway, this guy's from Cornell, and he's writing a book on digital currencies, and he's advocating for CBDCBs, and he basically outlines like, we can force people to spend their money. We can do negative interest rates. They're not going to have any privacy. We can track every transaction, and cash is going to be dead. He basically just puts it all down in a New York Times op-ed, and they send it out.
And so this is, again, like I was saying last week, I don't know if it was on Rabbit Hole Recap, but certainly in the Bent and Friday's issue, is this is part of the ruse. Like, they say all this stuff, like, we want you to be thrown into this digital panopticon. We're going to airdrop money into your account. You're going to have to spend it quickly. You're going to have no privacy. You're going to get taxed immediately via negative interest rate policy. They say this out in the open nonchalantly. That's part of the ruse. Like, they just do, oh yeah, this is the way things are supposed to be. And then they get the media, obviously, in this case, the New York Times, but CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, they'll begin parroting the same type of lines, and they'll do it nonchalantly as well. And then they'll begin to ridicule valid dissent that individuals like Bitcoiners will put up, like, hey, maybe we should prioritize privacy. Maybe negative interest rate policy is theft. Maybe You shouldn't airdrop and like try to force people to consume over a certain amount of time. Maybe that whacks up incentives to a certain degree, and they'll ridicule you. They'll call you stupid. They'll call you a criminal. They'll say, "What the hell do you have to hide?" And people who don't have time or the ability to dive deep into these subjects and understand the nuances will take what Jim Cramer, what Rachel Maddow, what that fat fuck Brian Selter at CNN says, and they'll be like, "This is the truth. Like, I need to run with like this. Yeah, yeah. CBDCBs are good. Like, we need these cuckbucks. Like, what are you talking about? Bitcoin bad. Part of the
CBDCBs.
ruse. They say this all nonchalantly out in the open, and people just mindlessly are like, "Oh, he's got a suit and tie on. He's behind a desk at this news station. So what he says is true, and I should go with that." It's crazy. Like the fact that you have people openly advocating for the, the deterioration and destruction of financial privacy in the New York Times is like, where the fuck are we? What the hell is going on here?
Well, so like the main argument will be the three main arguments will be low fees,
Yep.
greater access,
Less,
greater access for poor people. Like poor people will be able to access this. You know, that's what they're going to say. And then the third thing is going to be like terrorism and money laundering. Those will be the three mainstays of why you're going to want CBDCBs. And if you disagree with that, then you just don't love the country.
and
And
energy. Don't lean into energy as well.
maybe,
They already
uh,
have in the EU. That's how they posture it. And Powell said it too. Like, oh, we'll be able to do this by converting a fraction of the amount of energy into electricity that the Bitcoin network uses. Lagarde said that point blank.
right. Maybe if they're specifically saying against Bitcoin, but when they're transitioning people away from cash and stuff, I think it'll be those other three. But if the argument is against Bitcoin specifically, then maybe they'll say the energy thing and they'll keep going with the energy thing. But I think it's cleaner just label us terrorists
Yeah.
uh, than making an energy argument. But maybe
Maybe I am a terrorist. I do want to
you're
destroy.
not a terrorist, Marty. Neither of us are terrorists. We both love this country.
I love this country, but I fucking hate the politicians and the central bankers.
I do not support terrorism one bit.
I support subversive terrorism that's peaceful, which Bitcoin provides the world.
That's peaceful.
I want to terrorize the halls of the Federal Reserve building
Nope.
from the comfort of my own home just by buying and holding Bitcoin.
Nope.
No, can't run with that too
No
dangerous.
terrorism. No terrorism support for me.
No, we do not support terrorists with this podcast. You guys support us. I'm fucking with you. It's a joke. Hey, Susan Wojcicki, I'm just kidding. This is just a joke. Whatever your name is. Should we get it on to rosier topics? Maybe we'll come back to this
I
and
have a rosy topic.
get
We're
into it.
about to hit block 696969.
Ooh.
An exciting one.
696969. We're not like imminently about to hit it. Where are we right now?
It's
We're at
coming up.
692,200. So 696. We're like 4,000 blocks away from that, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty soon. Lower your time preference.
Like a month and a half.
Yeah, that's pretty soon. We're like 6 RHRs away.
Yeah, we should start teasing this in like
Yeah,
5
that's
hours.
what we're doing. Let's build it up.
All right. Maybe. All right. Freaks. Block 696969 is coming up. What should we do about it? We're very mature on this podcast.
I don't know. We'll do a special episode.
Should we get the rapper 6ix9ine?
We might be. I feel bad because it's sold out, but we might be in Dallas. That would be cool.
Ooh. August 26th.
And
Yeah.
if you guys want to join us and you don't have a ticket, you can't. I'm sorry. It's sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. Get in there if you can. You got to find somebody who can't make it. It's going to be hot. Figuratively and literally in Dallas, Texas that weekend. Gary, love you. Conference at the end of August in Dallas. Very hot. Very
That's
hot.
what everyone said. He's been pulling it off, though.
He has been. He has
There's
been.
air conditioning. Air conditioning exists.
Being made aware that more tickets have just been opened up by Justin Evedon.
Oh shit. Well, freaks. I appreciate you listening to the show, but if you do not have a ticket, leave the show. Go figure out where to get those tickets are if you're watching it live, because it'll be sold out very, very soon. He does not have much capacity.
Website.
Website has tickets available
Yeah,
according to the live chat. If you're listening to this on the podcast, it's probably already sold out by the time you listen to this. So I apologize.
that is true. That is true.
I have another rosy news.
What's that?
This happened before our HR last week, but we forgot to put it on the list. Saquon Barkley, MVP of the NFL, future MVP of the NFL, best running back in the league, announced that he's going to put all of his marketing dollars, all of his ad money into Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. No shit coins, none of that bullshit. Doing it the right way. And I think it's going to be like, they're projected it's like $10 million, $12 million. He should bring in this year in ad money, and he's going to put it all into Bitcoin through Strike.
Shout out to Quan. I would push back on your accolades that you thrust on him. That has he ever run MVP? He hasn't won MVP yet.
No, this year he's going to, though. The only investment that will outperform Bitcoin this year is if you bet on Saquon winning MVP.
Debatable. Good luck with that. Hasn't he had injury? I'm a Pennsylvania.
He's coming off an injury. Yes.
My wife went to Penn
He's
State.
going to blow everyone away.
So my wife went to Penn State. So we are Saquon fans here, even though we're Eagles fans. First, Giants are sort of a bitter rival. Football's getting boring, though. Yeah, I said it. But on to the next topic, which is the fact that Brink, the company dedicated to giving out grants to Bitcoin developers to work on the protocol and tangential software, is run by good friend John Newberry and Mike Schmitty, has issued 2 new grants. One to Larry, how do you say it, Ruane? Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's a good guess. Apologize, Larry. I'm glad you got the grant. Apologies if we mispronounced your name.
Well, Larry's got an interesting story that we'll get to. So Larry's Ruane, I hope I'm getting that right, at Larry Ruane on Twitter, LarryRuane, and Sebastian Falbasoner, I think I got that one right too, have been issued grants from Brink. Larry's story is interesting. He came to Bitcoin Core by way of Zcash, working for the Electric Coin Company, which is a development firm that was basically launched to develop Zcash, but Zcash is a fork of Bitcoin Core. And I guess Larry learned the way of the Bitcoin Core code base via that fork.
What, Electric Coin Company?
Yeah.
Is like the consensus of Zcash.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a Zcash Foundation, and then there's the private company that's Electric Coin Company, which is like consensus with a Y of Ethereum. And then there's Zcash, the chain and the protocol. That's just a complete shit coin. It's just trending to zero.
Yeah. He will still be working at the Electric Coin Company for a little bit, but he will be focused a good portion of his efforts towards Bitcoin Core review, which is essential. Again,
both of them are reviewing.
Yes, both are reviewing, Sebastian and Larry.
That's very big.
Yes.
There's been a lot of calls for more people focused on review. So good to see that from Brink. Our friends over at Brink.
Yes, and Sebastian, he got into the game in 2014. Jimmy Song's introductory post on Bitcoin development helped guide him, and now he will be working on review as well. And this is great to see. Again, something we were very passionate here at TFT. We're very passionate about here at TFTC, which is how to fund these open source contributors to make sure that Bitcoin has sufficient amount of review, testing, and code that works, that gets implemented into the protocol to make it more robust, resilient, distributed, private. There's many aspects of all those features that we want in Bitcoin that need to be attacked by many different people doing many different things. And so, seeing what Brink's doing, what you're doing at OpenSats, what BitMEX is doing that we talked about last week, Human Rights
Yeah.
Foundation, just more Square Crypto, more and more of this is
BitcoinDevlist.com if you want to donate directly without a trusted third party.
yep. You can donate to your favorite devs on GitHub as well. Do recurring monthly payments. And then another thing that got announced right after we recorded RHR last week was Square Crypto's. No, isn't that Square Crypto? It's Square.
No, it's
Proper.
Square. It's a new company out of Square.
Yeah, Jack announced in a thread last week
It's like a
that
subsidiary company.
yes, similar to what Cash App is under Square, a new subsidiary company dedicated to providing open source DeFi tools for Bitcoin. So I guess they're going to try.
But it's hardware wallet, right?
No, that was announced at Bitcoin 2021. Jack last week. Where have you been? He announced that they're going to create this open source initiative.
I thought it was like self custody. Why
Self,
do you say DeFi?
is it like that's what it's for? They want to. I think they want to jump into like DLCs and
So my understanding, maybe I'm just completely wrong. My understanding was in Miami or during the time of Miami, Bitcoin 2021, he announced that they were thinking about an open source hardware wallet and developing an open source hardware wallet. Now, my understanding of the recent announcement is we are going to have a dedicated for-profit company that is focused on self-custody Bitcoin things. And I assume the hardware wallet initiative is part of that subset of that company, right? So if you're going to have an app on your phone, we know it's mobile focused, right? You're going to have an app on your phone that handles the interface and everything of whatever you're interacting with Bitcoin. The whole thing is going to be open source and self-custody. And the hardware wallet is going to be like an add-on element of it if you want to up your security in that situation. So like I assume that it's going to all be part of that same subsidiary company.
yes, I would imagine it'd be a holistic suite. Thorgal Aggerson in the chat says it's going to come with the CIA backdoor, but hopefully, if it's all open source, we'll be able to find that CIA backdoor and close it with sufficient code review. We need code review all over the place. So that was an interesting initiative that got launched last week. Again, as the authoritarian creep continues and accelerates, it's good to see that there are at least some Bitcoiners out there still fighting on the front lines to get as many developers focused on making the network as robust and resilient as possible. Because I don't know if this is the intention of why they're doing what they're doing, but it is good to see this going on as it seems like the attacks on private digital peer-to-peer cash are beginning to be lodged by the powers that be. You got a software updates early on the list. You just want to knock them out.
There was just a lot of software updates, and there wasn't much other news besides Bitcoin price dumping a little bit and a bunch of bears coming out of the woodwork to try and dunk on me and other Bitcoin bulls. Just real quick, I mean, we have Kevin in the live chat who I assume is behind in the show and he's trying to catch up. So he's not going to hear my response to his comment that he made in the live chat, but he made a comment in the live chat that about vaccine passports and about a private business having the right to check if you've been vaccinated or not. And I 100% agree. A private business should have the right to check. If they want to limit their private business or event or, whatever they're doing to a certain subset of people, by all means. But I also don't think that businesses should be compelled to do it by the state. And that's where we are right now. We're not there. No one's arguing whether or not a business should be deciding what a business wants to do. It's the exact opposite. If anything, these businesses are forced to lock down and comply with absolutely everything.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, you can do what you want. And you're
I
actually
just won't go to those businesses.
yeah, you're actually will have consequences monetarily. And hey, here's a spin zone on that, Kevin. If you want to keep your cooties to yourself, you're not supposed to like roll out vaccines in the middle of a pandemic that actually fucks up with the variants and stuff like that. So you may actually be contributing to the exacerbation of this quote unquote pandemic that's going on, creating the Delta variant. You may have contributed to that. So just be aware of that. You could actually be doing more harm than the people who aren't getting vaccinated because you're just going along with what fucking Pfizer and Anthony Fauci are telling you to do. And you're actually throwing a ring in the natural course of events. So be aware of that too. It's a possibility. It's out there.
We let Kevin derail us. Let's continue the conversation.
We have software updates. Seed Signer version 0.4.2 has been released. I've never seen Seed Signer, I don't believe, on the software updates list. And they're calling this release the From Cold to Warmish release. What's going on here?
Not sure.
Yeah, okay.
But I like the project. I met the guy who's project lead at Seed Signer in Miami. He presented in the Foss Dome. Good dude. It's a cool project. The idea is a build it yourself hardware wallet that you can incorporate in multi-sig setup very easily. Similar to Spectre, do it yourself. And it's a great project, and we're going to be tracking it here at RHR going forward.
Yes, we will be. We're going to try and track all the projects that we can, freaks. Spectre desktop version 1.5.0 has been released. I'm feeling there was a big thing in here. Or was that their last?
It was translations.
Translations.
They translated into like a shit ton of fucking.
Didn't they open an API too?
I'm sorry, freaks. I know I curse a lot. It's probably a lost cause. We're 3 years in now.
Stop. Didn't they release an API too?
I don't. What is it in the release notes? I put the release notes here. Let's click them.
I thought I saw feature API framework number 1232.
What does that mean, Marty?
I don't know. I thought I saw Ben Kaufman talking about like an API that other apps could leverage to pull in some of their.
We haven't had a segment of Marty reads release notes in like 5 months now.
I gotta search _Ben Kaufman.
Well, apparently they have released some kind of API framework, but I have no idea what that means, so I'm not going to speak to it. Marty's very in tune with it, so he's going to tell us.
Now has a new API which would allow easy integration with third-party softwares and unlock new use cases. Yeah, I think that's a pretty massive update for them. I was right.
Marty was right.
I was right. It didn't even need the release notes. I just knew that from memory.
It's really impressive.
Next up, Samurai Dojo version 1.10.1 has been released. Matt, this is the point where you just stop me if there's anything.
Yeah, I'll just stop you. I don't really know. I just put them here.
Eclair version 0.6.1 has been released. Electrum version 4.1.5 has been released. LND version 0.13.1 beta has been released. Blockstream Green desktop version 0.1.10 has been released.
This one I know what they added.
What's that?
They added coin control finally.
Boss, shout out Blockstream. Coin control, important.
We need coin control in every wallet. Make it the standard. Let's go.
Yes, those are the software updates of the week. Again, do not rush to update these if you're not comfortable. Be aware that they exist.
The next two are like kind of software update tangential.
They're launches, right?
Yeah, so we have Greenlight by Blockstream. Have you seen this? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems pretty dope. Like there's a very easy way to spin up a Lightning node in the cloud. It seems similar to Voltage.
No.
What's the difference?
The private keys never leave your device. Both on-chain and Lightning.
Okay.
But what that means is it means that when you're not using it, they just turn off the node in the cloud. So you spin up the node in the cloud super easy. You have a seed. You hold the keys yourself on your local device. Every time you use it, it needs to communicate with your local device to update channel balances, whatever. So you can't use it as a routing node. You can only use it as a personal node, is my understanding. And I assume, doesn't say it anywhere, but I assume as part of the trust model, because they're turning off your node, is that they're incorporating watchtowers in some way. But they don't mention that. So my first thought was your node's offline until you use it in 2 months. What's going on with my channel partners? So because you can't update channel states, obviously, if your keys are not hot. So I assume they're integrating Watchtower somewhere along the line, but I don't know that for a fact. But it's a really cool concept. Just this idea of, and you spin it up on their infrastructure, but you can move it after the fact to your own infrastructure if you want.
Yeah, you can port it. This came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting this. This was a very pleasant Ninja launch that happened this week. A lot of people have been working, not a lot of people. At the end of the post says they're a small team working on this, but I saw some Blockstream folks tweeting like, "Oh, I've been waiting to announce this for a while." So again, Lightning continues to get more mature. The tools around it get more mature as well. The accessibility is only getting easier, and it's a beautiful thing to see. We all know that I'm very bullish on Lightning here. Specifically, I know Matt is pretty bullish as well, and it's the stuff that's going to be enabled by Lightning specifically is mind blowing. I was on BTC Sessions, Ben's Happy Hour podcast last Friday, and Elise Killeen, myself, Vijay Boyapati, and Jeff Booth were talking about this. Like, people just right now, or most people, not everybody, but just view Lightning as this really cool payments layer, but it's so much more than that. When you get into like network stuff, and
most people don't even know Lightning exists.
Yeah, right.
And even Bitcoiners, there's a whole huge subset of Bitcoiners who have never used it.
Never used it. And really, again, I'll just focus on the payments aspect of it, being able to easily send and receive Bitcoin in channel, but like the network and the communication tools that can be built via Lightning. I think what the team at Impervious is working on specifically with their API and stuffing other types of data into Lightning routes is pretty mind-blowing when you think about what can happen there.
Well, I mean, you brought it up.
What?
I don't know. I'm not sold yet. We'll see.
On what?
Impervious.
Why not? What's your beef? You're laughing. What's your beef? You got some thoughts, obviously.
I know. I just
lay them out. What are they?
There's just there's just a lot of hype and buzzwords. So I'll believe it when I see it.
All right. I can grok that. I can respect that. Believe it when you see it. We'll see. If true. Very exciting. Outside of that, Sphinx, Podcasting 2.0, incredible examples of very interesting use cases that the Lightning Network can enable. Multi-sig with better privacy. Michael Flaxman, who has been
this is super cool
on privacy and multi-sig specifically, has released a blinding a seed using secret BIP32 pass. So we'll link to this GitHub page in the show notes. I was at this conference all week and have not had a chance to deep dive into my technical research. I'll let you take this one because I'm sure you've
so this is something that I think you've been aware that they've been working on for a while. And I've been aware that they've been working on a while because it's one of my biggest complaints about collaborative custody. And it's this issue that if someone's holding your key, like Unchained Capital or Casa or your lawyer or your wife or your, business partner, they can see what that key is securing. They can see your transactions and your balances. So they represent a privacy risk, not a security risk. I mean, privacy can be a security risk, right? If someone knows exactly how much you have and how you spend it. So this allows collaborative custody situations in a way where the party who's holding your emergency key is blinded from what it's actually controlling. And that means, not only does that mean that you can be I think the main use case is massive, is that you can use a collaborative custody like Unchained or Casa in a relatively private way. But also, if someone finds one of your seeds in a self-sovereign multi-sig, they don't know what it's securing, right?
Yeah, right. So if I remember correctly, just having talked to Michael and the guys at Unchained about this over the years, the idea is that you take So you have an HD wallet, a private public key pair associated with an HD wallet. Then you take one of the public keys from a certain derivation path, and then you create a new uh, private public key pair using a hash of or hashing that key or something like that to create a whole new HD wallet below that derivation path, and you can hide funds in that. And if you ever get in a pinch, like say it's a situation where you pass and your family needs access to your Bitcoin, they have one key, and somebody like Unchained has the other. That's where the only privacy leak will come is like in a desperate situation when you need to get access to your coins. They'll have to sign and they'll know how much you have because they're helping you move it at that point. But hypothetically, theoretically, uh, if you if you're healthy and able to access both your keys in that 203 setup that you have with the collaborative custody model that you can spend and receive within that 203 very privately without.
So my understanding is a little bit simpler than that. I might be wrong. Is so right now when you do multi-sig or any kind of HD wallets, any kind of wallet that's giving you multiple addresses in a row, we tend to use standard derivation paths. And that is because it makes restoring easier. With this, the idea is to use a large randomly generated derivation path. So whoever the person is who has the seed doesn't know what derivation path is. It's non-standard. Now that's a risk. You need to keep track of what your derivation path is that is chosen. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to access your funds yourself, or your heir won't be able to access your funds yourself. But that's like a separate two-factor type of piece of knowledge. So you have the seeds, and then you also have knowing where your derivation path is, what your correct derivation path is.
Yeah, where to find it.
And the main use case is that these collaborative custody providers, I mean, right now, let's be honest, they're not that big. They don't, most users want to use just either a regular custodian and just completely trust them, or they're doing the self-sovereign thing. The middle ground where you have this collaborative custody is just not that large yet. But presumably, it will become one of the most desired trade-off balances because it's in between the two. And it for a lot of people, it suits a very strong trade-off balance for them. They get their handheld. They know there's professionals with an emergency access, but at the same time, funds aren't at risk. They represent a massive privacy honeypot, right? We've seen the U.S. government and other governments hit Coinbase and Binance and Kraken with John Doe summons. Basically, this idea: tell us all of your users who are holding more than $20,000, transacting more than $20,000 on your platform. They could just as easily hit collaborative custody platforms with that. And then from there, use their coercive powers to get you to comply with whatever they want you to comply with. So it's in these companies' best interests that they don't have all this private information, because if you have the private information, you could be compelled to hand it over in the future, and you have to secure it, right? It creates a massive security liability for these companies that they have to protect the private data. So if they don't have to do that, that's a major boon for both the customer and the provider, and it makes Bitcoiners more resilient across the board.
Agreed. I mean, this blind multisig would be a massive boon for plausible deniability for these collaborative custody providers like Unchained. You'd be like, hey, we honestly don't know. We can't know. We don't want to know.
We just have the key. We don't know the derivation path.
Yeah. And very happy to see this come to market. Michael's been talking about this for years. I think I remember him first describing it to me at BitBlock Boom 2018.
Yeah, that's where he described it to me too. Because I remember like 4 months before that, I got into, and since then, Parker's become a brother. But like 4 months before that, I met Parker Lewis for the first time, and we had like a 3-hour drunk discussion / debate about the risks of collaborative custody And he was like, I want to solve that issue too. We're working on that.
Hey, disclaimer, sponsor the podcast, but
You heard the ad in the beginning.
yes, you did. I haven't read it yet, but recorded it yet, but I will. They fucking produce. Like they listen to their users. Many things that I like, feedback that I've given throughout the years, talking to Drew, Joe, Parker, and everybody working on their product. First, I said, all right, we need. I want to dump an Xpub into this multi-sig. I don't want like a single address I'm just setting it to. They provided that. And I wanted to do something where I can sign all this offline, not in a web browser. They produced Caravan. And like Matt and I have described, this is something that we've talked about them too. Like, honestly, like if I'm going to keep my inheritance in a collaborative custody model, like, I'd be more comfortable if as few people as possible knew exactly how much we're in the multi-sig setups that I have. And Michael's not officially associated with Unchained, but I think he likes working on these problems with them.
Yeah, they just like use his services for free.
Yeah.
Drinks.
They've been talking about this with Michael for some time, so to see it finally get fleshed out and brought to market is incredible.
He's basically part of the Unchained team. I like consider him part of the Unchained team.
Right.
He says like at some point in the write-up, he's like, there are certain collaborative custody providers that are already using this in the wild. I'm like, yeah, you could have just wrote Unchained Capital in the write-up. But yeah, no, I mean, it's fantastic to see. It's not even like whether or not you trust Unchained. It's like I think they could either be compelled, they could have a inside employee that fucking does it, they could have an external breach that happens. It's just you don't want that information somewhere where it can be taken.
Yeah.
Keita Miner made a good point about derivation paths. It's like the 26 words. So like the 25th word is your passphrase, and the 26th word is where the Bitcoin's stored, how it's derived, and with that's the derivation path.
You do these custom derivation path setups, and if you do it on your own, and you try to experiment with this collaborative custody model to make sure you detail that derivation path and lock down and save it in a very safe place and secure.
The thing is, with these multi-sig setups, you already have to save the redeem script and the pub keys. So you already have a separate piece of information that you need to recover.
It's
not just the seed.
Let's do a refresher on this, like redeem scripts, all that's like why.
It's just usually you have like
seed in the address. You need more than that.
If you don't have the private keys that are part of your quorum, you need to have the public keys that are part of your quorum, period. And it's saved in, usually, like if you do it on Spectre or Sparrow, they give you like a printout where you get that information that you need. And I guess the rule of thumb for self-sovereign Bitcoin users is to store a copy of that information along with each of your seeds. Obviously, now we're adding this other thing. What is the custom derivation path? You don't store that with people who you don't want them to know, how much you're holding or whatever. But you can still store you still have to store that other information. So you might, it doesn't really add that much overhead. It's just another piece of information that's being stored with that stuff.
Yeah. Be aware. A lot of nuance when you get into the multi-sig realm, and then the multi-sig realm with custom derivation paths takes it to another level. So there's levels to this shit. Practice makes perfect. But again, disclaimer, sponsor of the pod. I'm a very happy customer of Unchained's Vault product. I use it, and I will be using this feature if implemented. Because again, I love it. I love all you at Unchained, but
I mean, that's why I would never use collaborative custody right now.
It is weird having people know how many sats you have with them.
Marty knows, the boys at Unchained know. Like, without this, I would never use collaborative custody, period. Yeah. I understand that it fits some people's trade-off balances. It's strictly better than custody. I hate that we call it, but I wouldn't use it. I hate that we call it custody and self-custody.
We got into this debate
because why am I adding a word to be a proper like you're not a Bitcoiner if you're not holding your own custody. Like, so why am I saying self custody? I feel like we need a better word for that. Like, it's just I'm using Bitcoin and you're not using Bitcoin. Someone else is using it for you. You
Oh,
know,
what?
like why am I saying self custody?
I didn't have this conversation with you. I had it with somebody else. But yeah, there's this nuance, right? Like self custody versus collaborative custody versus yeah,
Collaborative custody makes sense to me.
that does.
Custodial wallets make sense to me. But they're doing the same thing with us. They're saying unhosted wallets are self custody. But still, self custody is a horrible word too. That doesn't make any sense. I use Bitcoin. If you're using Coinbase and keeping your Bitcoin on Coinbase, you're not using Bitcoin. Why am I saying self custody versus custodial? It just there's
Yeah, what is the right term? There was like I had this conversation with the short bits guys, with Ben and Chris. Like and it had to do with like multi-sig escrow, where you have one key, your counterparty has one key, and then a third party has that third key. Like, what is that? Like, you technically don't have custody because you can only sign one
it's
one key.
collaborative custody.
Well, is that
Yeah, it's collaborative. It's just got 3 collaborators instead of 2.
yeah, yeah,
And that falls under the collaborative custody label.
okay, yeah.
Marty, what is even the plural of custody? Someone asked that in the chat.
Custody I.
Custody.
Custody I. It's like cacti. That's the plural of custody.
Bi-weekly self-custody. I
uh,
love the ride or die in the live chatters. That's what's about.
it really is. So shout out to Michael Flaxman for,
Yeah, good dude.
I mean, just give him props for having an idea and working on it for years and actually getting it to market. That's like no easy feat. Like, he's been working at this for a while. So just happy for him personally, because I know he's been talking about this and thinking about this for quite a while. And just to see something come to market is, I know it's got to be gratifying for him. And so it'll be interesting to see how people experiment with this and implement it. So go check it out. We're going to link to it in the show notes. His GitHub page is github.com/mflaxman. If you guys want to check that out. The B word, big conference, digital conference went on yesterday. I was at a physical conference while the B word conference was going on. I'll get it out of the way. Obviously, Jack Dorsey mentioned Great American Mining during his conversation with Elon.
Like, yeah.
Very good for the brand. Very good week for the Great American Mining
Massive.
week. And I want to say, like, I think Jack's argument juxtaposed with what Elon said right before him about.
But you didn't watch the whole conversation, right? You just watched the clip out.
I was at the conference in Miami and was in the convention center. I had no service on my cell phone. Just had
Was it in the South Beach Convention Center?
no. It was by the airport. It was right connected to the airport. The airport convention center, or whatever.
Because Bitcoin 2021 was almost at the South Beach Convention Center.
Yeah, no, it wasn't South Beach. I can tell you that. But I had no service, and people coming up and like, "Oh, Jack mentioned Great American Mining." I was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And caught the clip later.
It was a great shout out. He also shout out Moon Wallet. Another good shout out.
Did he drop the W?
No, he fucked it up. And someone asked him on Twitter afterwards, like, what's the wallet Jack recommended? I can't find it. I'm telling you, I fucking love that wallet. It's a horrible name. It's not a good name.
It's a good name. It's a terrible spelling.
Yeah. There's actually a Moon wallet too. That's like a custodial wallet.
Yeah.
With O's instead of U's. Maybe I'll just like whenever I talk about like the object that's in the sky at night, I'll just spell it MUUN. If we can just meme that into existence, then we'll have the better spelling.
We're gonna flip in the moon spelling. It's gonna happen. All right, let's get on it, freaks.
Someone spelled it in the BTC pin, spelled it MUNE. There's so many different, but yeah, that was a great shout out. So that was technically they're not calling it a conference; they're calling it an initiative, the B word initiative.
Okay.
That was the only live talk of the event. So you had Kathy Wood, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, and then Steve Lee moderating, project lead at Square Crypto, and our boy. And then you had a bunch of pre-recorded content on both sides. It kind of actually tangentially fits with our previous conversation, because I had a conversation with Lop, Darude Bansal, and Wiz about custody trade-offs for institutions, and trying to basically get them to move into at least collaborative custody models instead of fucking just sending all their Bitcoin to fucking Anchorage or BitGo or Coinbase custody or some shit, or Prime Trust. So I thought our conversation, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but I thought our conversation was extremely productive. So basically the idea of the event was, let's have them build out a content library, right? It was the Crypto Council for Innovation, put it on, which we should be skeptical of. And it was headline sponsorship by ARK Invest and Square. And the idea was build a content library. Marty's talking to his lady right now. Build a content library where you can send that to your institutional investors at any time in the future if they have a question about whatever they have a question about. So there's like all these different tracks where you can where the different, and Marty just left, where the different institutional investors can look at the different topics that our boy Yassine Alamandra over at ARK Invest basically curated. I think him and Steve Lee basically curated the whole track list of the topics that they thought was important. So you have to come at it from that perspective. You know, you have to come at it from the perspective that it was very much a corporate event for corporate people. And in that regard, massive success, I think. I think people got their expectations way too high.
Busta bought.
What?
Busta Rhymes bought after watching the conversation.
Did he do it because of the B word he said?
Yeah, he tweeted it out.
So like there was no hard hitting questions in the Elon Musk thing. There was no pushback. There was no. I think Dorsey did a fantastic. I thought he did fantastic. He's a non-confrontational person. You know, he didn't push back at all. Really, he pushed back with the GAM thing, kinda in the least confrontational way possible.
That's what I would say is like.
But like, he did it in like the least confrontational way possible. Steve, I fucking love Steve. You know, doesn't have much moderator experience, if anything at all. He was thrown into a live conversation with 3 heavy hitters, and you know, I think he did well, all things considered. Like, could he have pushed back more? Yes. You know, could he have structured the conversation more? Yes. Could Kathy and Jack also have pushed back against Elon, some of the shit Elon said? Yes. But as far as I'm concerned, Bitcoin is filled with many different stakeholders. We're going to have more and more different types of stakeholders going forward. They're all going to have different goals. They're all going to be self-interested. They're all going to act for their own goals. We're not going to be happy with every single thing that happens in Bitcoin land. But Bitcoin is robust because every individual actor can be greedy, and that makes the network more secure rather than less secure. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. So, was I pulling my hair out at some points during some of the conversations and some of the panels? Yes. You know, have there been way worse events that have portrayed themselves as Bitcoin educational things? 100%. I think there was a lot of solid signal amongst all the content there that I have seen. And I think it was definitely, I personally think it was a net benefit for institutional investors who come in to the space, get some solid education before just coming in and be like, I'm new here, I'm going to fix this.
Agreed. If I were to push back on Elon, the number one thing I would push back on is the idea that you could have 100% of the Bitcoin network running 24/7 on wind and solar alone as a base load by 2030.
He didn't say that.
Yes, he did.
Well, obviously it's going to have a power wall next to it. to take he was trying to pitch his own
Yeah,
fucking
he said
thing.
with a battery. Yeah, he said with
Right. Yeah.
like wind solar generation. It's just like that's just not going to happen. The amount of
Yeah. I mean, he also like they were talking about like fucking Jack was talking about uh providing global access to an open monetary network for the world. And fucking Elon retorts with, have you considered allowing your ad partners to buy ads with crypto? You know, like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? Um, he
uh,
did the pump headlines were that Elon said the SpaceX owns Bitcoin, that he owns Bitcoin, that Tesla still owns Bitcoin, that he has no intention of selling. He said he had a small position in ETH personally and a small position in Doge. I think it's the first time he's ever admitted that he had a position in Doge. Go fuck himself for all that pumping dumping. I think he's a massive Doge bag holder reputationally wise. Like he feels guilty as he should for doing that whole pump and dump with Saturday Night Live. So I don't think he's going to drop the Doge shit anytime soon. And it was, it was the Elon show. He was very much Elon was there for himself. Um, Kathy was there to mend bridges, and I felt like Jack was, ready to bring freedom money to the world. Like that. That was like and there was just like no really confrontation between the three. But I did participate in the event. I'm very grateful for them giving me a platform. I think our conversation was very important. I think there was a lot of good conversations there. I would also add, they gave a spotlight to chain analysis at some point before the talk, before the Elon and Jack and Kathy and Steve talk. And I mean, fuck them. Talk about collaborators. But I understand, how we've seen so much worse. we've seen so much worse. It's just like people got their expectations way too high. I think there was a lot of disappointed people after the fact. I think they just got their expectations. This was not the forum where you're going to get hard hitting questions or any kind of real deep discussion.
that happens on Tales from the Crypt. Citadel Dispatch, Rabbit Hole Recap. That's where it's going to happen. With that being said, our resident Elon Stan, full-time Bitcoin, asks, to what extent did Elon redeem himself in your minds? It doesn't deserve to be 0%, in my opinion. And I agree. I said that I gave props where props were due yesterday. Elon did call the government, the federal government, out as a institution, as a monopoly on violence, and doesn't really do good for the world, which I would agree with.
I felt like it was kind of like Elon was handed a silver platter to redeem himself in the eyes of Bitcoiners. And I just don't think he really took advantage of the silver platter that he was handed. I think I think he showed a gross misunderstanding of Bitcoin. He talked about, you didn't listen to him, Marty. He talked about big blockers.
Yes.
He talked about the rules of Bitcoin being old and antiquated. He talked about people not running their own nodes. It's not about everyone running a node. It's about anyone being able to run a node if they want to run a node so they can interact with the network without a trusted third party. There was no pushback against Elon, and Elon expressed many times a lack of understanding of Bitcoin, which is fine, but he did it in a way where it was, I'm Elon, I'm here to fix Bitcoin. I've discovered Bitcoin, I'm here to fix Bitcoin. Even his introduction in the beginning, it was just like, he was just saying big words. He was like, I founded, X.com and PayPal.com and this and that. And then he said all these big words that I can't even remember what big words he said. It was just bullshit. And I didn't expect pushback against him. So we didn't get that. But mostly he was ignored. His comments were ignored. It was like Elon says his piece, and then we say our piece, and then we move on. And at least Elon admits that I own Bitcoin and I'm not going to dump it.
Again, disclaimer, I work for Great American Mining Square, sponsor of the pod, but I think that response to the renewable energy baseload for Bitcoin mining, Jack's response to that, rolling into what we're doing at Great American Mining, making the world more energy efficient by utilizing energy that would otherwise be completely wasted and literally just burnt and sent to the atmosphere, was like a tip of the hat. Like, hey, it's not the only energy that could be used to power mining, which is very subtle, but I think at least I, again, personally invested in the company and in the movement, appreciated that bit of pushback, personally. And beyond that too, like, I know I shit on him a lot and have been vocal on Twitter against Elon posturing against his companies and his narrative that he's trying to get out there. But I don't think he's that smart. I really don't. I don't think he's as smart as people make him out to be. And Austin and I were actually talking about this yesterday, like, because we did watch some of it and at least get watch clips of some of the arguments he was making on Twitter yesterday after we were decompressing after the conference, and it was just like, holy shit, this dude's got like 2013 like FUD lines, just recycling shit that's been rehashed over the last 10 years. Like, we just need to make a book of Bitcoin Talk .org threads that are just like FUD that has been hashed out over the last 12 and a half years, and just start handing it out to people like, hey, Bitcoin consumes too much energy. Be like, all right, here's a Bitcoin Talk thread from a decade ago.
That's what this initiative was supposed to be.
Right.
And all the other tracks were pretty much that. But this one talk that was live, that was the flagship talk, there was no pushback. There should have been, and I feel like I'm being a little bit too hard, to be honest, because I think it accomplished its goal. I think the goal was accomplished, that Elon's not an enemy of Bitcoin. He's actually pretty much a supporter. He's an extreme narcissist. And Elon's there for Elon, but he's not an enemy of Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. And that Square, Arc, Tesla, they're all aligned for Bitcoin. That was the idea. They accomplished that. I think in mainstream media's eyes, in institutional investors' eyes, they accomplished that. But there were so many opportunities for, Elon saying, well, maybe the block should be a little bit bigger. Maybe we should increase the transaction throughput. Maybe, the nodes can consume more bandwidth and more disk space, more processing. And there should have been pushback. I hear what you're saying, Elon. This is why I disagree. This is why it is what it is. And there wasn't that element of pushback. And it could have been done politely, right? But that didn't happen. So people are disappointed. But I think in general, it beat my expectations. Maybe my expectations were lower than yours, but it beat my expectations. I think it was whatever it was. We weren't the target. We're not the target market for that.
Hey, got Busta in. Busta Rhymes is in now. I mean, hey, one more Bitcoiner, at the very least, to do that. And I doubt anybody sold their Bitcoin after.
I think at one point Elon said like, there's like some small countries that are using Lightning for payments. And like, he didn't even mention El Salvador. He just said there's some small countries using Lightning for payments. But Lightning was mentioned like 4 or 5 times. That's 4 or 5 times more than I expected. ESG didn't dominate the conversation. It was less than like 10 minutes of the 45 minutes to an hour of the conversation. That's a win. I think I think I've spent years of being disappointed by corporate events, and this one, was better than 99% of them. And in general, I think the guys at ARC, specifically our boy Yasid, who leads the Bitcoin initiative over there, they know what they're doing.
They do. And again, outside of a few clips, I haven't watched the whole thing, so I can't speak as articulately as Matt has on the whole event. Obviously, I'm very pumped about some of the content that came out of there. It's crazy. The Jack Dorsey bump's real. Our inbound leads at Great American Mining over the last 24 hours have been insane. Just people.
We have Hornay in the comments who wants to remind you to do shout outs.
BTC Pay server's been down for a week. We don't have any shout outs. I need to get that back up and running. I've been in Miami. It's a fucking nightmare.
So we don't have a shout. We might have shout outs, but you don't know if we have shout outs or not.
No, we don't have shout outs because they can't even purchase them. So
they can't even buy shout outs if they wanted to buy shout outs.
No, not right now.
So did you apologize to the freaks?
Sorry, freaks. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, we can carry on.
I'm sorry. Shoutouts will be back next week, I promise. We're carrying on to Amnesty International and the Washington Post writing about this Pegasus hack. This was from an Israeli intelligence agency, correct? Found a
It's
way to.
not. It's not intelligence agency. Oh yeah. Before we get there, I mean, it might be intelligence. Before we get there, Chris Fair mentioned that there was a positive aspect where they were talking about self custody. I hate calling it self custody. They were talking about holding your own keys and like using Bitcoin properly. Um, I was very happy that that was discussed. But to be fair, Elon had a tweet about you should hold your own keys already. And I felt like it was a little bit of a, well, here's a positive aspect that Elon's already discussed, and we can just put it out there. But it's still good that they discussed it. And yeah, I mean, everyone, people shouldn't use custodial services, period. Even if you trust that third party now, at any point in the future, something bad can happen where they can be compelled to take your money. So
Steve Barber is pretty convinced that all these custodians, particularly like exchanges and interest rate providing services, are rehypothecating. He went on a thread the other night, worried about that. Get your
yeah, I
coins
mean,
up.
he's been worried about it for a while. I mean, I've been worried about it for a while. We've been due for a large custodian failure in a long time.
Yeah.
We haven't had one in a while.
You don't have it on the list, but what's going on with BlockFi? They're getting sued.
Well, we're going to talk about it. I have it here, but they're such a shitcoin company that I didn't put them on the list. We were just going to talk about it on the side.
Okay. Should I wait? Let's talk about
Uh,
this first and then go to that.
let's talk about BlockFi before NSO, and then we'll go to NSO.
Okay.
So BlockFi has been hit in New Jersey,
And
Alabama earlier today, and then Texas while we were recording, or like right before we started recording.
yeah,
And they're being hit for selling unregistered securities.
yeah, they're getting hit with securities.
But that's not what it's about.
The interest bearing account that they're saying is a security.
No. They're hitting them for the shitcoin support they have. Like they even just added Uniswap's token, Uni or whatever.
But in the language of the lawsuit, they specifically call it the interest bearing account, right?
So here's my theory. You want to hear my theory?
Yes.
Here at Tales from the Crypt, we have been outspoken. All right, I think we've been outspoken. I would hope that we're considered outspoken that these interest bearing accounts are predatory, right? You have these interest bearing accounts. They attract people to put money into these regulated custodians, to do KYC, to agree to all the different terms. You can never use Bitcoin privately ever again. You have to hand over your first newborn child. You have to do all this different shit. And then we'll give you 6% or whatever it is, right? It's a carrot to get you into the hole and then never get out. In my opinion, it's predatory. I believe in a free market. I think anyone should be able to do it, but I also believe in my right to say that I don't think people should use it. I have seen on CNBC them repeat exactly what I said. Well, except for the right to use it. They're like, it's predatory. There's no way that they're able to offer interest rates this high in low interest rate environments.
Who's saying NBC?
I've seen Kramer talk about it. There's a narrative in play that the crypto world has these predatory interest rate bearing products that attract dumb retail into investing. And I think I've always thought the products were predatory, right? So I don't think BlockFi is doing anything illegal in terms of their interest bearing products, but they have all these shitcoins that they support. Some of them they give you interest on as well. So these attorney generals of these different states really want to fuck them on interest bearing, but they can't. So they fuck them on the unregistered securities. And this is why if you have shitcoin support, you have additional liability, right? You add all this additional liability on top is one of the reasons. I mean, besides having to support the chains and whether or not they're secure or not. But this is another reason.
Yeah, you have exactly. You have layered risk when you add all these shitcoins, the security risk, the regulatory ambiguity of a lot of these coins, and then the tech debt that you accrue. Like imagine being Coinbase and having like 100 shit coins that you have to have developers. Hopefully, you're running full nodes for them to at least confirm that you're actually receiving actual coins from each different chain as an exchange. That's a significant engineering feat that needs to be maintained on an ongoing basis. Yeah, and then combine that with the regulatory aspect of shit, are we selling illegal, unregistered securities? It's not a risk I'd be willing to take, I guess that's a risk they are taking. They're hoping that they can take the Uber approach, right, and just say, hey, it's going to get to a point where this is so pervasive and so many people are using it, it's going to be impossible to make it illegal. But I think there's a very good case to be made, particularly in like the Ethereum DeFi world, that it's very few thousand people just.
No, they're going to do the same thing as Coinbase, and they're going to sell out their users to get around securities laws, and they'll just fucking pay the fine. They'll pay whatever the fine is. I'm one of the best BlockFi fudders there is. I don't think you should, I don't think you should keep your money there. I've been accused of BlockFi FUD for years now. I think it's undue risk. I think all those interest-bearing accounts are a one-way street. Most of the Bitcoin goes in there and just never comes out. I think completely banning CoinJoin usage on withdrawals is straight reckless. BlockFi had a major data leak. They can't secure that data. Users should be able to use privacy best practices when sending Bitcoin. That's what CoinJoin is. At the same time, what do the AGs see? They see a company that's valued at $5-10 billion. They got semi-predatory practices, at least from the AG point of view, on the securities and the interest-bearing account. And it's a great cash cow. Let's hit them with fines. Let's hit them with the stuff. Maybe I can run for mayor or governor afterwards. I reined in crypto. Like it's the Lawski approach. Maybe I'll join the board of Ripple afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Or you go opposite, like Lawski, Katie Hahn. Like
Yeah.
you persecute or you regulate, and then you go work for one of the.
You see it all the time. Yeah. It was the guy who went from Coinbase to
Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks, and then he went to Binance. And Binance has been getting hit by all these different governments as well at the same time.
Yeah, Binance is already like lately posturing and taking their foot off the gas pedal because they haven't articulated this, but it seems very obvious that they're feeling regulatory pressure as well.
But yeah, look, if you have money in BlockFi, you should pull that money out. I don't think the interest-bearing account is worth it. I think if you want to do a collateralized loan, you should do it where someone who doesn't rehypothecate as a service, period.
This sponsor the pod, hodl.
Yeah, and Unchained.
And Unchained.
They both do it. Hodl does without KYC. Unchained gives you additional financial services. Understand the trade-offs, understand the risks. I don't think people should use collateralized loans, period. I think I've been pretty outspoken about that. If you're on a collateralized loan right now and you opened it at $60K, you're feeling the fucking fire right now.
You're liquidated now.
Meanwhile, not only can I not sell my coins very easily, I don't care. I can sit through this. I don't have to, raise my collateral requirements. People should be very careful with collateralized loans, period. But if you're watching 3 different American states hit BlockFi in a row,
none of which
even if you're the massive BlockFi promoter, just pull your coins out for a little bit. Wait and see what happens. You can always put them back in and collect interest afterwards.
BlockFi not available in New York? I feel like New York would be on this list too, but they're not.
They probably aren't available in New York, but I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But also fuck New York in that regard. That's not BlockFi's fault, but yeah.
Right.
None of these services are available in New York. Is Unchained Capital available in New York?
I don't think so. At least I would imagine they're lending. I bet their Vault product is, but not lending. I would imagine. Yeah. Could the Vault be considered a money transmitter?
No, the Vault is definitely allowed everywhere, I assume. Yeah. Definitely and assume. I have no idea. I assume the correct response is I assume the Vault products is available everywhere
Yeah.
because they don't take custody.
Yeah. 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 So that's how Hodl Hodl can offer their lending platform in the U.S. to U.S. citizens because it's 2 or 3 multi-sig escrow where nobody has full custody. So that's how they're getting around it. Beware, freaks. Beware. Beware. Yes, they're being sued by BlockFi is being sued by 3 states. We'll see how that. I mean, that'll have material effects on BlockFi, obviously. But what do you think the ripple effects of these states being successful in their attacks via the securities avenue? You think it'll have a ripple effect across the industry? He's reading comments. He's reading comments.
Wait, the BlockFi stuff is going to be a ripple effect?
Well, if the states are successful in their suits,
Well,
if they
first of all, I mean, I don't believe in securities like regulation, but
neither do I.
BlockFi is clearly dealing in unregistered securities based on the laws that exist. So is Coinbase. Got away with it. Maybe they'll sell some chain surveillance software to to the IRS and the DEA for pennies to get out of it. But I think that centralized companies operating this space are going to face way more regulation, punishments, attacks, pressure, whatever you want to call it, going forward. I think that was always the case. I always assumed that was going to be the case. It's one of the reasons I've never jumped in, into that space, even though that's where all the money is really in this industry, because you're just going to have to bend the knee at some point. And at some point, you're going to have a gun to your head and you're going to have to comply with absolutely every fucking crazy request and requirement. And even at that point, they're going to decide whether or not you live or die. And that's what's going to happen to all these companies and all these different spaces. And long term, there'll be regulatory arbitrage. And some jurisdictions will handle it better than others. And companies will move to those jurisdictions. They'll pay their tax dollars to those jurisdictions. But in the middle ground, there's a lot of companies that have very high valuations that are extremely vulnerable to this type of regulation, this type of enforcement. And they're going to be made examples of. And some, will be collaborators and they'll get through it. And those will be the biggest companies.
Agreed.
Everyone else can't come through after them. That's what Coinbase did. Coinbase got through the fucking thing. They paid off who they needed to pay off. And then they made it as difficult as possible for other competitors to come into the space.
Classic regulatory moat play. No, I completely agree with all that. It's going to happen. That's why it's important to get your coins off these centralized entities, whether it be an exchange or another type of service provider in the space. Get them in the personal custody. And again, be vigilant, be aware. These companies and these entities are making a lot of money. They're liking their profitability. They're going to want to continue their profitability. And if the state and the regulatory agencies that act on behalf of the state keep putting the pressure on, these companies are going to turn around and begin to try to influence the Bitcoin network and the protocol to ensure that they can continue making as much money as they are. It's just the natural incentives of the game that they're playing, especially publicly traded companies. And again, this is my biggest criticism of the mining council and the mining industry attempting to appease this ESG movement and these regulators is like they're gonna fucking, it's like the fucking scorpion riding on the back of the frog or whatever that parable is. They're just gonna like ride you across the river and then fuck you.
It's the scorpion on the frog.
Yeah, like it's don't appease these people. We should be attacking
and the parable is that the scorpion just stings the frog halfway through. They're crossing the river.
I know. He stings him when he gets over. He's like, take me over. Like, I won't.
No, he stings them just in the middle and they both die.
No.
Yeah. And then the frog goes, why'd you do that? He goes, I'm a scorpion.
Yeah, the scorpion gets across.
No. They both die.
Freaks. Somebody in the comments correct one of
Do they
us.
both die, or does the scorpion live and the frog dies? I'm
Scorpion,
telling you, they both die. Learn your parables.
the scorpion lives. I will.
Scorpion dies as well. That's the whole point of the story.
They both die. God damn it, I'm wrong.
That's it. Mao is right.
All right, maybe that's not a good parable then. How are they? Everybody's like, they both die. You idiot. I thought I got across. Stung him and was just like, peace out, motherfucker.
Yeah, he was like, I'm a scorpion. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Um, I gotta brush up on my parables. But yeah, no, like, again, like the pressure, particularly from public markets, is going to be immense, immense. And yeah, I think what we saw from General Bytes last Friday, approaching the mailing list and attempting to get something embedded in Bitcoin because a regulator was pressuring them via the travel rule in Europe. That's only going to continue. And again, that's my biggest critique of all these mining companies going public and trying to cater to the ESG movement. First it's the energy mix, and then it's like what fucking pool are you pointing your hash at? And,
But that's why 2017 was so fucking bullish,
right?
was because we had a large group of major companies fail at pushing what they wanted to push through on Bitcoin. Um, so I don't think these companies can get that shit into Bitcoin. I think sovereign Bitcoiners wanting certain upgraders might have trouble. It might be the opposite, right? But I think Bitcoin has proven that it's very hard to change. That is the value prop. The value prop is that it's like it's just so hard to fucking change that you have guarantees that what we know today about Bitcoin won't change much in the future.
Yep.
That's not true with these other chains, right? Like, I mean, the perfect example is like a little bit of a cheap shot is Binance chain, right? It's like you just pressure Binance, and then that's where Binance chain goes, or Tron and Poloniex, right? Justin Sun owns Poloniex, or FTX and whatever their Solana or whatever their chain is, right? Very simple. ETH, you hit consensus. They don't have they've never shown a willingness to resist change as stakeholders. Anyone on the ETH side, period. They just roll over.
Doubt.
So there's a social aspect here, right? There's a social aspect of stakeholders that are not willing to run code in certain situations.
Certainly.
That's the hard part of Bitcoin to replicate. That's the part that's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to replicate. That's what all these people miss. That's what Elon missed in the B word thing.
Right? That's what I was just gonna say.
And no one pushed back.
Yeah.
And that was the frustrating part. But I didn't expect them to push back. So I wasn't as frustrated as I would be otherwise.
Leaning into the General Bytes email and what you just mentioned, running code being important, running versions of consensus software. Let's war game that. Like, what if General Bytes somehow convinced?
It's the URI code, right? So if
But like, what could node runners do to?
it's not node runners, it's if the wallet you use, if you use Blue Wallet, or if you use Green Wallet, or if you use Samurai Wallet, or if you use Hexa Wallet, and their URI that's generated provides all your personal information a la KYC, then I'm not going to use that fucking wallet, and I'm never going to recommend that wallet to anybody. Period. It's the QR code that gets generated by the wallet, right?
Yeah, but that QR code be produced by a version of consensus software, correct?
No, there's not consensus code.
Not
It's
consensus code, but an
a
implementation.
standardized information sharing QR code format.
But produced by the implementation, right?
It'd be produced by the wallet
Well, then why would there be a BIP?
because there's BIP for things that are just wallets that are not core.
Okay, but it goes through the core process.
I mean, a perfect example is BIP 47
Yeah, right.
Paynims. or BIP39, seed words. Seed words were universally derided for inclusion, or not derided, discouraged for implementation, and
The ride.
independent wallet developers followed that standard regardless. Core didn't for a while. I think they added it recently,
Yeah, they did recently. Um,
but Core didn't add it for a long, long time. But individual wallet providers did it.
yeah,
So
very
you can have standards. What was the payment? I forget. I should know my
BIP
BIPs
7.
better.
BIP 7.
What?
You thinking about BIP pays BIP 70?
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking
They
about.
were the only ones who implemented it, right?
Yeah.
But like individual wallet providers could have implemented that.
Hmm.
This is kind of similar. This would probably be as similar to that as possible as of any of the BIPs, right?
All right. That makes sense. So it seems like regardless, General Bytes could just fucking write this into their wallet software and their ATMs.
They could submit the BIP. The BIP will be there. We're following this BIP. If you want to be a part of our coalition of cucks, you can implement it. But I won't recommend any of those wallets. Period. I won't use the wallets. I won't recommend the wallets.
Yeah. Seems fair. Seems fair. Free market playing out. You could try to do this. I'm going to discourage and we'll go use something else. Let's get to this NSO spyware.
Right. So this is a private company. The Israelis say that that their secret service or whatever isn't involved.
Yeah.
Um,
Odd. Intel.
of course they are, but I think ours is as well.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But technically it's a private company. One of the things,
It's like a Palantir of Israel.
it's like our weakness as free market proponents enables this. And it's a hard line that I can't stop, but governments are using basically private corporations to do their surveillance. And they either actively partner with the private companies or they compel the private companies to hand it over, right? Like, so you have Google as part of their ad model are just completely corporate surveillancing us, right? Well, and then you hit them with a gag order and you take it. Alternatively, you have a Palantir or an NSO where you're literally paying them out to carry out these attacks, right?
Yes.
Directly. Like their business model is to carry out attacks.
This reminds me of, what's her name? Jen Psaki, the person who speaks on behalf of Biden, press secretary. And did you see her spiel this week about forcing social media companies to ban it?
If you deplatform them on one platform, you should deplatform them on all the platforms.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Just leverage
But it's very effective, right? Because if you can have a private company do it, then all of a sudden constitutional issues go. You don't have to deal with that.
There's a bunch of hand waving. Like they're private; they can do whatever they want.
Google's a private surveillance company. They're storing all that data. Us as the U.S. government, we're just asking them for the data. That customer can't have an expectation of privacy. That's on a third-party server. There's no expectation of privacy there. They don't need a warrant. They're able to just access it. They can even give Google a gag order. Now, NSO is a little bit different because there's governments that are legit paying NSO for the software, and they're hacking journalists with it. So the journalists got really pissed off. The NSO software was used to help kill Khashoggi. It was also used.
Pissed off too.
What?
Seems like Apple got pretty pissed off too.
It was used to hack into Bezos's phone. That WhatsApp hack where he got caught cheating on his wife.
Mm-hmm.
That was NSO. And the majority of the phones that were compromised were iPhones. I think it was like 41 that are known, and like 37 of them were iPhones. iPhones are a uniform system. So if you have a compromise, if you have a 0-day exploit, if you have an exploit that someone gets a WhatsApp message and they click it or they see it and it compromises the phone, it usually works across all iPhones. With Android, the major negative from a consumer level is you don't get updates uniformly, but that also means it's harder to hack just because there's just so many different types of Android phones, right? So it's not as uniform. And as a result, 0 days on iPhones are way cheaper right now, which is it's probably the best way to tell with these things. But anyway, this NSO story is a perfect example of surveillance overreach. The journalists got very offended, rightfully so, that so many journalists were targeted. Political enemies and journalists were like the main targets. They're the most profitable targets, let's be honest. And I think it was like it was similar to the Panama Papers, where like there was like a group of different organizations that all reported and dropped it at the same time. And the way you know that there was meat to it is on the same day they dropped it, the U.S. accused 5 Chinese hackers of compromising American systems. So they like had they were ready for their disinformation, you know,
it's so
their way to cover it.
They're so
cover the coverage.
Lazy, dude. Oh, it was Russia. It was China. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, look, I think the Chinese are owning our systems, 100%. I think the people that are advocates for forced data collection on Americans by American companies are complicit in any breaches that happen. But I do think the Chinese and the Russians are owning our
I don't know if they're owning. They're definitely attacking. I wouldn't say owning, but like with this Pegasus stuff too, like obviously Israel's a big ally of the U.S., but like this Pegasus thing, like came from ex-Israeli intelligence. Like we know that Israel has a very robust and effective, basically intelligence arm that does a lot of
the best one though.
Good hacking. I don't know about that either, but like
America has the best one. We're the best cyber criminals.
Yeah, well, that too. It's like very hypocritical. Yeah, just like Russia, China, and again, I agree.
I think Russia and China have very good.
I think they do too, but like there was I forget who, somebody from Cloudflare, which is funny enough is the next topic we're going to talk about, but like it came out and said like overwhelmingly like the amount of attacks they get come from Iranian IPs. You never heard of like Iranian hackers? Maybe every once in a while. I don't know. There's just like ever since like the Russian bot, like Trump dossier getting pissed on by like a stripper fake story. It's just like, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like I don't trust anything.
Who said the Iranian thing?
A Cloudflare representative, I believe. I forget where I heard it.
Are we for the recent vulnerability?
No, not for the recent vulnerability. Just
the recent vulnerability, they don't know if it was compromised or not. It's just
the Cloudflare thing I'm thinking about was like some podcast that was recorded months or years ago, even where they just got asked like, where's like,
look, every country that is not dumb has an active offensive program, cyber program, period. Makes sense. Makes 100% sense. Of course they do. America we've arguably digitized more data than anyone else. We're sitting ducks. We have all these different companies. We have a lot of different, we're not a proper authoritarian government. We have a relative free market where we have all these different companies that got onto the internet for the first time in 75 or 80, and they haven't updated their systems. It's incredibly insecure, and we're just sitting ducks out there. And you know, the Chinese, I think, are more organized. I think the Russians are more organized. They have a top-down hierarchical organization, and we have all this data available for them that is valuable. So of course they're going to harvest us for data. So I actually I'm not discounting the fact that there are Chinese hackers that are compromising our systems. I just think that it was convenient to press charges against people that we don't have in custody on the day that the NSO stuff came out. And it came out from like Washington Post, Guardian, New York Times, like all the different publications all at the same time. And then they hit with the Chinese hackers were hitting us at the same time. So
It's also tiresome. It's also tiresome. Well, this Pegasus, back to the topic at hand, which is this Pegasus NFL. It's like apparently it's like ephemeral, right? The way Apple set up, they can find it and patch it, and then they have to like whack-a-mole it. Is that correct?
it's just constant.
Yeah.
You're constantly just looking for 0 days. You're constantly looking for open exploits, and you don't, instead of reporting them, you exploit them, and you make money off of it.
You attack journalists, you let them get murdered and cut up to pieces.
In India, we saw that they got called out for they were hitting all their political opponents. Modi was hitting all his political opponents and journalists.
I mean, yeah,
It's definitely happening. It's 100% happening
I mean, Tucker Carlson's claiming that he's getting spied on
by
by
the NSA.
right? Yeah. God damn it.
I like PTC Pins is in the comments. He goes, "You never hear of Iranian hackers because they're that good."
Right. Yeah. It's are we under the cyber contagion, the cyber pandemic that Klaus Schwab has warned us about for some time? Wasn't there like a major outage on a bunch of websites over in Europe today? I think a lot of bank websites and bank apps.
I think Akamai was definitely pronounced that wrong. Their servers went down. Like the servers are run by like 4 different companies. They like run the whole internet. Like our next story is Cloudflare. It's there's. I don't think you need a conspiracy theory for a bunch of sites to all go down at the same time. If they stay down for a long time, maybe you need a conspiracy. Now we did. I saw something come through while we were recording that gives you a little bit credence, and I always give credit where credit's due.
Oh, thank you. What am I getting credit?
So the Kaseya ransomware that we reported on a couple episodes ago by the Revel ransomware group. Remember they hit this company Kaseya that like provides they provide like management software to a bunch of different companies. So they like went through the Kaseya vulnerability and then they ransomwared all of their customers or a bunch of their customers. And it was like arguably one of the large, at least by ransom amount, was one of the largest ransomware attacks ever. They disappeared. No trace, no communication from them. No one knows where they went. And Kaseya supposedly has a decryptor tool that can unlock their customers' stuff. And they say they got it from a trusted third party and they won't give any more sources on what that was.
Hey.
So that is like that is very suspicious.
Hey. Very convenient, not suspicious, right? Maybe convenient and suspicious.
It's conveniently suspicious.
Yes. I don't know.
I'll give you that, but
tinfoil hat Uncle Mario's like, I don't trust these motherfuckers.
I give you that. Look, I'm not saying that there's not going to be false flag ransomware things within real ransomware things, but there's definitely real ransomware things going on.
Agree.
This kind of, I haven't read the article, but I saw it come through. I mean, that feels like a false flag. They made that a big thing. And then they just were like, oh, we got a decryptor tool. No one's going to report on this. No one's going to report on the decryptor tool going out.
Yeah, we found it. It was just like laying on a USB port.
Oh yeah, we just got a trusted third party. I also felt like it was like a nod to Bitcoiners. Like we love trusted third parties is like a bingo word for us. But yeah, they were like, we got a trusted third party, but we don't know where it's coming from. But yeah, this Cloudflare thing.
Trusted third party.
Cloudflare is this whole idea of DDoS protection as a service, denial of service protection as a service. And it's because the internet infrastructure is not as robust as Bitcoin is. So it's susceptible to this idea of denial of service attacks where you just flood it with traffic and there's no cost of the spam like we have with transaction fees. And you can take a website down. So what happens is people pay a third-party company to protect that for them. And they basically act as a man in the middle. We talk about man in the middle attacks. It's a company or a person that sits in between you and whoever your counterparty is. If you go if you go to a major site, if you go to like an Amazon or a Hulu or something, there is not Amazon, because Amazon like runs so many servers, they do it themselves. But if you go to like basically any Bitcoin exchange, they have a man in the middle provider that sits there and polices the denial of service attacks. And how can they do that? It's because there's economies of scale. If you have many servers around the world, you can check and see where attacks are happening, and you can shift traffic to the places where it's not happening. So there is an economies of scale if you're a large provider. Cloudflare is one of the larger providers, mostly because they offer a free service.
I think they've got to have like a lion's share of the market cap or the total addressable market of.
I always thought they did, but then Keto Miner, I think he's in here. I saw him in the live chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here. There's like 3 or 4 companies.
Yeah.
That basically split it like kind of 25% each. Cloudflare, we know the most because they're the ones who offer a free product that you can scale into, right? Like if you're just a small website, you can just get Cloudflare. And if you start getting a certain amount of traffic, then you have to start paying them, but they have a free option. And that's just because they wanted economies of scale. They wanted to grow. It was a user acquisition cost. But yeah, there's like 4 or 5 companies that provide this service, and they act as basically man in the middle of all major providers. Like our boy Catan has this great blog, K3Tan, K3TAN.com, his personal blog. And he hosts that from his closet. He self-hosts it, right? Like he hosts it from, and like he got on Hacker News, and the site went down, right? Because just everyone was hitting his site, but at the same time, a DDoS could take down his site as well. He thought he was getting DDoS. It turned out he got posted onto Hacker News. But the point is he has to give up privacy if he wants to use a DDoS provider to protect him, and that provider is going to sit between him and any person who reads his content. Otherwise, you're just sitting out in the open.
Raw dogging it out in the open.
And my favorite theory is that like if I was Cloudflare, like I would just attack all the sites that didn't use me. You just attack them, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, come in. We got an introductory offer."
Yeah, then you send them like the
right. It's like fantastic.
Funnel lead email, like, "Oh, I heard you had some problems."
They would be the best. They would be the best compromise like Spooks. You want to talk about Spooks? They'd be the best.
All right.
I think like pretty much every Bitcoin exchange uses if not Cloudflare, they use a competitor.
Well, the reason we're talking about Cloudflare is because they had a massive, I guess 12.5% of the sites that were leveraging Cloudflare.
No, it's 12.5% of all internet sites. So I think they're saying that Cloudflare is 12.5% of sites.
Okay, it's material amount. So it affected. Is that what bleeping computers say? I'm not sure.
Click it.
Because I read it earlier. It's Cloudflare has fixed a critical vulnerability in its free and open source. Okay, so CDNJS. So they offered this open source, whatever a CDNJS is, and it impacted 12.7% of all websites on the internet. So I guess
not their customers, just all websites.
Anybody leveraging this library or whatever this open source project is that they released. I'm sure they leverage it as well. Vulnerability exploits comprised publishing packages to Cloudflare's CDNJS using GitHub and NPM to trigger a path traversal vulnerability and eventually remote code execution. So remote code execution is not ideal, especially if you're running something like a Bitcoin exchange. Like imagine remotely executing a Bitcoin transfer to your own wallet. You need the private key, but hopefully they don't hold their private keys on their servers.
I mean, they have hot wallets and shit.
Yeah.
It's more of a privacy risk, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen exchanges with hot wallets get hacked for large amounts. Bitfinex, 116,000 in 2016. Obviously, most famously, Mt. Gox. What was their final total, like 412,000 Bitcoin, maybe 800,000 Bitcoin over the course of,
What lost?
yeah.
I think like 600. Maybe I just averaged the two numbers you said.
Yeah. It has happened before. I mean, yeah, Bitfinex was the last big one. Was that the last big? I guess you could say
Bitfinex was massive.
Quadriga.
I can't believe Bitfinex got away with that shit.
I mean, it's what rolls into the
Ah,
tether FUD back heavy in the news.
can't believe Bitfinex got out of that shit. Good for them.
They
Good
did.
for the users, man. The Mt. Gox people still haven't gotten their money back.
But that's that class action lawsuit's close to coming to an end, correct?
Yeah, okay. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
The Japanese move slow. So if any of you don't know, like the Mt. Gox customers who got hosed by Ed McCaleb handing a completely usable website to Mark Karpelis, who was completely incompetent to be running that website. Um, Shit ton of Bitcoin stolen. But apparently, so it's a case in Japan. It falls under like Japan,
They have like a custodian of the funds that were left.
and he was trading.
And he
Made
w- he was able to sell funds at like near the top of last cycle that covered all of the yen denominated losses. And I thought it was um it was like kind of it was a very well timed move. And then like they waited one full cycle and now we're like at went to like 60K and now we're like over 30K. It's like, why did he sell? They like that was 4 years ago. He was selling fucking coins at like 18K, 17K, 16K.
still haven't distributed.
Haven't distributed shit.
Yeah. So be aware, freaks. Yeah, the Bitfinex one was big, 116,000.
It was like all their coin.
Yeah. Um, that's all we have on the list today. But I want to.
And they had like the sketchy token thing. I don't know. There
Yeah,
was like some bullshit that
what
happened
Tether
there.
spun out of, right?
No. They had Tether before that.
Okay.
That was 2016, if I recall correctly.
The
It
hack.
was right before the 2017 run. We were at like
Yeah, the hack was like October, November
we were
20.
at like a humble like $700 a coin or something like that, $600 a coin. To all you bearish people out there.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring it back to. You mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you've been not dueling, but there's a bunch of bears and bulls coming at you on Twitter. What's going on?
I don't know, when we dipped under 30K, all the haters came out.
Oh yeah, what were they saying? Who came out specifically? Let's shit on the haters.
No, I'm not gonna.
No.
No, that's what they want.
Okay. Bearish at 29K. We're at 32 now. I'm back close to 33.
I'm the first one to admit that I got ahead of myself a little bit. Just a little bit.
By conference day,
Just a little bit on 200K by conference day. But to be fair, that was a microcosm. That was like a 3-month period where we were pumping like fuck. And I got very excited. I do admit I got very excited. I should have stayed more humble.
These are heuristics. Let's jump
But
into.
the point is, if you're long-term bullish on Bitcoin and you are just, as you are getting your salary, putting it into Bitcoin, you're just staying humble, you're not leveraging up, and you're stacking sats. It has been an extremely successful investment strategy, and I expect it to be in the future. That's the whole point. Did I stack the bottom in the most recent bottom? Yes. Did I stack 64K as well? Yes, I did. And I don't pretend to know where it goes short term. No idea. Except when I'm talking all caps on Twitter saying 200K by conference day. But I apologize.
You don't have to apologize for anything. These are good lessons in heuristics to look out for in upward price movement.
The mempool caught me more off guard than the price, to be honest.
The mempool, but like
the mempools, there's no mempool.
Trav comes out and he starts bringing out his parabolas, and Matt starts screaming 200K by conference day. like, all
I don't
right,
know. We had like Scott Minard going like 500K. I was like, I gotta top that guy. We
now
got fucking Sailor like 100K party. You know, like fuck you, man. Like I'll just go.
I'm
Go for
not
it.
fucking with you. The Scott Maynard just came out. It was like 12K this week.
Yeah, I mean, fuck him. We're not gonna go to 12K.
If we did, I'd be stacking. Freak.
If we no, if we hit 12K, Marty, I'll show a strong face for the freaks, but I'll be like in the corner, like, oh my god, were we wrong? Like, is this
That's
like
it.
I do not think 12K is in the card. I would be completely wrong.
Well, think about it. A perfect state attack is they're going to attack you, one of the most ardent, uh,
I'll
stead.
be bullish for the freaks in person, like live. Like I'll hold a strong face, but
I don't like to hear this. I don't like to hear this.
dude, 12K is not in play.
You're giving the listener spooks. The spook.
Fuck anyone. No,
Yeah.
anyone who.
How do we kill Bitcoin? We demoralize Matt Odell to the point where he's crying in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, like first of all, the fiat price of Bitcoin on regulated exchanges should not necessarily be trusted, but we're so far away from 12K. Like I cannot.
Scott Minard saying we're going there, so prepare yourselves. Put on your
Scott
diaper.
Ritter's a little fuckface. You know, he's just like fucking around with people. He's loading up his bags right now. 100% loading up his bags right now. He doesn't have to report that shit.
I hope you're all loading up your bags. He doesn't have to report it because it's not a security
I
event.
have no dry powder left. I just whatever dry powder I get at the end of the week goes into Bitcoin.
I've never been more bullish. There's never been a stronger need for Bitcoin. Again, like we've been saying the last couple of weeks, the increase in authoritarian tendencies from politicians, regulators, kleptocrats around the world has been getting stronger and stronger. The tendency towards normalizing something like a central bank buck that's just going to surveil you. Like they're
Yeah. The
they're
need for freedom money has never been stronger than to say, like, what am I going to sell it for? What are we going to sell it for, Marty?
not that CBDCB, and certainly
What? So, yeah.
well, and there's other things too. It's happening on all angles. Like Bitcoin's just getting swept up. Bitcoin's a tool that we can use to fight these authoritarians, and it is just one tool. Another tool is having. I'm going to keep leaning into this reliable, cheap electricity that allows us to be productive, and they're attacking that too. There's Alex Epstein, who's been on this podcast before. Go listen to it if you haven't before. We had an incredible thread today that just dove into like the completely asinine energy plan that is being put forward at the federal level, and I don't even think it's like a bill that's going to be passed. It's literally like a
Yeah, I was not humble at all.
it's
I'm
a
just reading the comments. Sorry.
I can tell, but this clean energy standard,
I'm never humble.
this
I
would
just that's why I try and remind myself to stay humble.
you let me do my thing, and then you can talk about how
Sorry.
humble you
Continue.
are.
I apologize. Continue.
This is important. This is important. The clean energy standard, it would dictatorially mandate 80% clean, including 50% plus unreliable solar and wind energy electricity by 2030. 9 years, not even 8.5 years, less than 8.5 years. Like the powers that be, like call me Marty Jones, call me tinfoil hat, call me conspiracy theory, call me paranoid Michael Saylor, whatever it may be.
Alex Bent.
Alex Bent, whatever you want to fucking call me.
I like Marty Jones. Marty Jones is better.
I don't fucking care. Like I'm observing what is being said in front of me and just trying to come to logical conclusions about this. And the logical conclusion that I'm coming to more and more these days is that there is a concerted effort to have like a controlled demolition of the economy and demoralize citizens around the world so that they can be cattle herded into.
Oh, 100%.
Like it's like asinine, especially like the energy stuff, like moving.
Oh yeah, like I would not want to be in the natural gas industry right now.
No, it's great. Natural gas is fine. You don't want to be in nuclear or oil production. Natural gas, like these people know that that the electricity that they're pushing people toward isn't reliable. And so like natural gas is the least dirty of the fossil fuels, is what people will say. So like you need natural gas power facilities as a base load to come in. Like that's what they're doing in New York right now. They decommissioned that fucking nuclear power plant in Newpoint, and they're replacing it with 3
Idiots.
natural gas power plants.
Don't
Like
point to me.
I know. Natural gas will be fine.
I'm a New Yorker now.
But again, like this is completely unnecessary. Ooh, whoa. Big admission. Big admission. You thought you were gonna sneak that by me. You're a New Yorker now.
No, I mean I didn't want to. I don't want to interrupt you. Continue.
Nah, again,
You can go.
you freaks have been listening. If you're new to this, your Uncle Marty is very wary of.
I mean, I'm not going to defend New York. That's my point.
Okay. I'm very wary about the push towards unreliable electricity sources as baseload generation for a grid. I'm not anti-renewable. I'm not anti-wind and solar. Like on their face, like I do think there are unspoken trade-offs on the front end of the supply curves about slave labor and coal use that people conveniently leave out of the conversation.
Yeah, that was not coming up at the B word. I'll tell you that much.
It was not.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're pro-choice when it comes to energy.
Pro-choice.
People should be able to pick whatever energy they want.
Yes.
Period.
Pro-choice.
Okay.
Your electricity, your choice.
I agree.
I do not think. Again, yes, I don't think unreliable baseload energy sources should be forced on the markets.
Now, if I could just jump in here and just defend Caps O'Dell, okay? Caps O'Dell, you can look back at the records. Caps O'Dell,
New Yorker. He's a New Yorker now.
Caps O'Dell started late January. We were at like 27K, 28K. I did get a little bit out of control. Okay. I should have stayed more humble.
We're going to win. We're winning. We're going to win.
We're going to win. Yeah. All caps. February, we're at like 28K. We went to 65K, 64K. We're sitting at 32K. I don't think Caps O'Dell was that bad.
I can't wait for Caps O'Dell's.
If we go to 12K, fuck Caps. Caps O'Dell can go fuck himself. I don't think that happens. I don't want to make short-term price predictions.
Don't do it. But what?
I'm not going to, but what I'm operating under is like a sideways until the fall, and then like kind of like a 2013 type of situation where we have like a second.
Tomorrow, freaks. Prepare for a pump tomorrow.
Dude, I'm happy. Like, I mean, there could be a dump too, and I'd be wrong. But I that's like kind of what I've been operating under is kind of like sideways until the fall, and then like we're gonna have like a crazy pump. But that is,
you've fallen for the 2013 cycle is going to repeat itself narrative.
No, not exactly. I don't think it's going to repeat itself exactly, but how is anyone with any kind of intelligence selling Bitcoin right now? Like I feel the FOMO every day. Like I want to have as much Bitcoin as possible. At the same time, I understand it's summer. People are scared about COVID all of a sudden again. There's like this whole macro element. They're dumping stocks and shit.
Yeah, it's the macro backdrop is perfect for Bitcoin. It's psychological at this point. One data point that I am thinking about using as an indicator that capitulation may have happened earlier this week is Alex Leishman's screenshot of the buy side.
That was so bad.
It was at 55%. I've never seen it below like 87.
Yo, Swan's buy side percentage was at 100% though, because they don't allow people to sell.
River allows both buying and selling, but I thought that was a very interesting data point.
Yeah, Marty makes a good point.
That may trend towards capitulation.
I mean, Marty's owl makes a good point.
What?
I apologize. That lowercase Odell is boring, and that's just what this is,
I think Caps Odell took you above 100K. Is that why you did it?
I didn't. No, I did not.
Is that why you did it, Matt? You wanted to get over 100,000 followers?
No, it started with me making fun of the fucking all caps headlines accounts.
Yeah, the Bloomberg headline.
Yeah, I don't know. Just have a good time.
Reply, guys.
I I don't. I think if you bought at 65K, I did.
I did too.
I think it'll look super cheap in the future. So like I'm not really not that worried. Like I unless we had 12K, then I'd be worried.
If we had 12K,
It'd be so bad. Like if I don't I can't that is
if
not operating under
we get
that
12K,
operating.
I'm refining my father-in-law's house and buying more Bitcoin.
The only reason we're having this conversation is because it's 3 hours into the podcast, so we know only the ride or die freaks are here.
I think they're all ride or die. I think you'd be surprised at the level of ride or die freaks that we have. The number of
Yeah,
ride.
like I think like you look at 65 and it's gonna be like 6,000 or 650. You know, like fucking imagine like people buying at 6,000 when it went down to 3,000. They're like, oh fuck, we're fucked. Now you're like, if I bought at 7,000 or 8,000 or 10,000 or 12,000, I'd be fantastic right now, right?
Well, it's a good social attack on the network. Like if it does hit 12,000, Bitcoin's still producing blocks, and they're forcing CBDCs on the like. That seems like the perfect attack, right? Like, oh, Bitcoin's dead. Here, take my CBDCB. Like, be prepared for that, freaks. Mentally prepare for that. Visualize 12K.
The
Visualize.
problem is if we hit 12K, like I just will not have any capital to put in. Like I won't be able to buy that dip sufficiently.
That's when you lever up.
No. Don't lever up freaks. It's a long game.
I'm fucking with you.
Some people levered up at like 50 thinking they could.
No, but seriously, like we're wargaming this out. That's a good social attack. Somehow suppress the price down to 12K and get people dejected. Maybe it's happened before in the past. I mean, 2015, summer of 2015, when it dropped to 180, was probably the lowest I've ever seen morale in the space.
Oh, when? In 2015?
Yeah, summer of 2015.
Oh yeah, I was a fucking wreck. I was like, fuck, I was wrong.
There
I
was
was like, but I'm gonna go down with the ship. I was like, I'll just go. I'm a bag holder.
there was days I would go on Twitter and they're like literally my Bitcoin list. Nobody would be talking about Bitcoin. They're just
Yeah,
like,
I mean, no, I mean, like fucking. Yeah, I mean, there's heavyweights that have like tweets that just have like got 3 likes or something.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, it was pretty dead. It's been a great rip. I have to take a pee.
Yeah.
Should we keep it going?
Nah. I
Yeah.
think this is a good rip. I look, freaks. There's some people that'll tell you that we're in a bear market, that it's like it's all over, that we'll never pass the all-time high again. To those people, I say, have fun staying poor. You're not gonna make it. If you got shook out by a short-term price movement, you never had a chance anyway with Bitcoin. So don't like take it personally. And long term, this will all just be noise, or we're wrong. But failure is not really an option because the alternative is CBDCBs, and they're just going to surveil us everywhere anyway. So might as well fucking go all in, go fucking caps, and make it worth it. But also stay humble.
I'm very happy you said that. Failure, honestly, freaks, like failure is not an option. Like I want to really drive that point home. That's how like the stakes are this high. Like we need to succeed in ushering in this technology, this peer-to-peer digital cash system to the world. Like not everybody all at once, but we need to get a tipping point of mind share that ensures that it will be here into perpetuity. I think the network is set up very well right now. We're going through a very big stress test with this hash rate migration. Hopefully we get on the other end of this stress test successfully, and that just emboldens people to have confidence to put value and transact via the Bitcoin network. But like this is a imperative technology that we need to ensure that we have liberty in the digital age. It's worth fighting for. There's a bunch of people out there on Twitter I've seen in my mentions this week who's like, you're never going to win against these politicians. They're always going to win. The central banks are always going to win. Wall Street's always going to win. The institutions are always going to win. Like you're never going to be able to beat them. Like
Fuck you, man. You fucking cuck. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Stand up for something. Have some balls. Like fight for something. This is something worth fighting for. I hope that everybody here realizes that, and that we should be fighting for this, and it's again worth fighting for.
That's what makes me feel better about Capso Dallas because we're all in. You know, we practice what we preach. Like
Yeah, loser
there's
mindset.
no sleight of hand here. There's no the you know on paper we've lost a shit ton of money as well. Like this is we're in it together. We'll go ride or die. Let's fucking go.
Yes, and I'll end it with what Braj said: stand up for something. Not enough people willing to stand up for something. Stand up for something. Bitcoin's worth standing up for. Matthew, it's always a goddamn pleasure.
Love you, bro.
Love
Love
you.
you, freaks.
All right, peace and love. Still live, still live. Hey, live streamers. Here's some nip for you.